Again, we have issues with the stream, but we're working on getting these bugs straightened out because it is ridiculous.
YouTube is a butt.
Yes, it is. Anyway, here we are with the Castlevania stream. Or the Castlevania Roundtable, I should say. And with me tonight, as always, is Mike.
Hey ho, I'm Frank. Or Frankenstein's monster, if you want to be technical.
I'm just calling you Frank.
It's easier. He's his own guy in the series, what the hell. We don't even know if there was a Victor Frankenstein in this continuity.
Heck if I know. Anyway, so joining me tonight would be the scary Jersey guy, aka Fatal Vision.
Hey, what's going on there, you crazy animals?
Fatal Vision is a very big Castlevania fan, always streaming on his channel. And he's had a lot of good stuff. You usually do like hacks and whatnot too, right?
Yeah, we're getting ready to start season 2 of Randomvania, which is basically where I do just one-off playthroughs of just various Castlevania hacks. Season 1 ended off pretty decent, and we've taken a bit of a break just to get stuff sorted out. Season 2 is about to come up next week.
Nice.
Sweet.
Be joining him for that at some point. And our other guest tonight, someone who I know a lot of you know very well, that would be Jose, aka Omega Ace Gaming.
Hi.
Hey.
So,
sorry, expert. I have a quick question. Maxi, does the term 540 mean anything to you?
let's see. I think I missed that one. And 540.
It's an inside joke, but with the 540 thing, it usually bounces off of Frankenstein is the name of the doctor, not the monster.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. You were talking to me. I my bad. I know that 573 is Konami's name in Japan. But that doesn't really come up until the later games, so yeah, I got nothing.
And Jose, so what are you doing with Castlevania anytime soon? Anything?
Well, I mean, on and off on the channel, I attempt to no death run the entire franchise, and so far I've successfully completed 17 out of the 36 odd titles.
Nice.
Very cool.
So at the moment, I've kind of hit a bit of a wall with Legacy of Darkness. I make it about 2.5 hours into the game, and then I just make a simple mistake and die.
Let me guess, the dual towers, or whatever that one area is that has no freaking checkpoints whatsoever.
I've made it past the dual tower. My furthest so far is the Tower of Execution.
Let me see.
I measure a jump wrong and I fall right into the lava. So.
Execution. No, it's been too long since I played it. That's not the one with all the crystals everywhere. No, that's like the Tower of Science or whatever. It's been a while. Whatever the case, I have to ask, will you only consider Judgment beaten if you've beaten it with all characters?
That's a bit of an asterisk. I've completed it without losing any rounds with just the one character, and I kind of felt like that was sufficient for that particular.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Totally. Absolutely. Just walk away after that. I would do the same. Seriously.
Yeah. Secondly, the only other thing I'd say that I'm doing that's ongoing on the channel is I'm making a series of Castlevania short videos. They're about 1-minute videos where I talk about the various weapons, monsters, creatures in the game, and their background, their lore, their origins.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's how I actually learned about the young Sherlock Holmes being a thing at all. Although I don't think Arthur Conan Doyle ever wrote about the stained glass knight, so it might be a bit of a loose adaptation.
Who is it? Which one's Fatal?
Right over here. I think we got it fixed now.
Okay, let's see. So, everyone just, how do Fatal Vision and Jose sound now?
Right here.
Testing. I just adjusted it on my end too, in case that helps.
If I can interject as well about the question about Judgment, personally, if you can survive playing through that game without throwing it out the window, you beaten it.
Yeah, no, I that's one of those games where I know I'm talking out of my ass because I've never actually touched it, and yet I still hate it. Can anyone blame me? I just it offends me on principle. We're not talking about Judgment tonight. I shouldn't waste any more time on it.
Yeah, that's true. We should move on with that one.
Lottie.
Nah, Judgment can just go die in a car fire.
I sure hope it does, yes. Also, Rob, you there?
Yeah, right here.
Okay. Sorry, it sounds like you were distracted with something.
I was a little bit.
Okay, cool.
I just brought the microphone up a little bit closer to me, so hopefully that helps.
Okay, cool.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So, now that we seemingly have gotten all of our issues straightened out here, I hope.
And don't mind me, I just had to adjust my fan because it's like 4,000 degrees out in Phoenix.
Youch. I thought it was bad in Florida.
No, they've like been talking about how it's like the 21st day of excessive heat warnings, like it's something to be proud of.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus Christ. Well, sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Heck, when I lived there 20 years ago, it wasn't that bad.
Now it's like 118, 119. It's like we're on day 21. That's like saying we played Castlevania Judgment for 21 days. It's not something you want to be proud of.
No, sir. No, sir at all.
So anyway, what we're going to do tonight is discuss the classic Castlevanias, basically covering everything from 87 through 97 with a couple stops after that.
I can dig it.
Oh, yeah.
So I invite all of you to join us as we step into the shadows of the Hell House. Because
Good quote from Simon's Quest.
we've arrived here on business, talk about some classic old school vampire killing jams.
This is the term that you have coined and you should probably copyright.
I did not actually coin that. A former colleague of mine did.
Okay,
What?
cool.
Classic Vania.
No, the old school vampire killing jam.
Well, I like that.
Yeah, I've been doing my best to get it out there, so. Mazin, no one is going to start twerking. Sorry.
Yeah, no, this...
Before
I don't think the series has ever debased itself to such a mean, but then again, it kind of died before twerking became a thing, so maybe it's a blessing. Anyway.
Okay, 86, yes, Eugene. I was going by the American release dates here. I believe the original Castlevania came out in Japan also in 86. So,
right.
But we do plan to talk about Vampire Killer for the MSX too.
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so that said, thank you for everybody who's come out for this. And I don't think we're going to go on for about 4 hours like it was Splatterhouse, but we're definitely going to discuss some hardcore Castlevania action.
I think we can get it up there.
I think so too.
As long as I stay quiet enough.
Oh, that's okay, Mike. I've got everything set for you.
Oh, you don't know me very well. I'm a blabbermouth.
I can be too, although I tend to be a lot more irrelevant sometimes, so gotta work on that.
That's okay. I have these all set up for Mike.
Yes.
Stop playing my life theme song.
All right.
Gladly.
So, let's go ahead and start with the original Castlevania, which is still my favorite game of all time.
Damn.
It is. I played it for the first time back in '89, and it was just like. And here's the funny thing: when I first saw the game, like I'd seen it in Simon's Quest in a video store at one point, and thought about renting them, but I looked at them, looked at the bag, I was like, man, these look stupid. I think I ended up renting some crap or something instead. But had a birthday coming up, or either that or it was right after we moved to Florida in the first place. And my parents were going to buy my younger brother and myself each a Nintendo game to kind of ease the transition, I'm pretty sure is what it was. So I gave my dad this list of games to choose from. And I don't know why. To this day, I do not know why I put Castlevania 1 and 2 on that list. The others were 1942 and 1943.
Two very good games as well.
Well,
Okay.
43 is. 42, it's all right.
For its time, it was all right.
Well, yeah. Anyway, they went to the store. Dad, I guess, saw 1942. Almost picked it up, but my mom's had always loved Halloween and whatnot, and, she saw Castlevania and was like, well, let's get this one. It's on his list. So they brought it home. My brother had The Adventures of Lolo, and he insisted he go play his game first. All right, Ryan, fine. So, and then they gave me the game, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, it's that game. Well, thank you. And I set it down and put a stack of books on top and forgot about it for the next hour. And then, of course, my brother's still playing a game an hour later, and I picked up the books and saw that the Castlevania was still there, and it's like, well, I want to try this out. My sister had a Nintendo of her own, so I convinced her to let me borrow hers for a little bit. Started playing it. I think by the end of stage 1, I was sold on the game, and it just got better from there. So, yeah, and that's part of the reason it's still my favorite game. So, what do we all have to say about this absolute classic that no NES fan or action game fan should be without? Mike?
It is. I think you can make a good candidate for it just kind of being the perfect game. It is quite challenging and appropriately lasts long if you do die a lot on it, but it also does feel like a game that constantly motivates you to get better, as was the case for when I first played it, where I think it took like 4 hours when I first had it, which is ironic because I did actually own and play Castlevania 3 before I got the first, so you think I would have been better at it, but then again, I wasn't great at 3 at the time either. I just used a password to try and get to the last stage back then. The original Castlevania doesn't even have passwords, so I had to start it up from the beginning, as it were, and learn the hard way how to reach and beat Dracula, and for as long as it took, I really felt like it wasn't time wasted, and it was just a fantastic experience. Now I can get it down to like 25, 30 minutes, maybe even a little less than that. But it was a real trial by fire and helped solidify my love for the series. There is not much I can think to criticize about it, except for the fandom bat bridge. That part sucks, but nothing's perfect.
How about you, Fatal Vision?
He said he has to pee, so...
Well, in that case, we'll go to Jose.
Yeah, well, my first experience with Castlevania for the NES was actually as a digital downloadable title on the Wii.
Really?
Yeah, so I was pretty late into the game on that one, but I'd even say that the Wii itself opened up all sorts of franchises for me. Ones that were either obscure or fairly expensive to get at the time. So there was the more affordable option, like the TurboGrafx 16 games were also on the Wii, for example. But I put a ton of time into it, and being able to save and resume when I felt like it was a big benefit, because I would stop the game, resume it, and then I'd complete it over and over again. So I just kept looping the game for the fun of it mostly, until I just maxed out the stage counter. And gosh, I did that, and it also, when it dropped on the Game Boy Advance, being able to have a portable version of that game was also fantastic. I really had a good time with that.
Excellent.
And yeah, as far as just how I feel about it overall, I think it's a great game. It's got a lot of versatility with the sub weapons. It really gives people ways to play the game. You can you could play the game with an arm tied behind your back, so to speak, when you're using daggers, for example, versus obliterating the game with a cross, or the holy water, cheesing the bosses. Or if you
Oh
wanna-
yeah, I do that every playthrough. Nowadays, I'm not gonna lie, the holy water was horribly busted, but what the hell? I like the sense of power I get out of it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's within the rules of the game and it lets you do it, why not?
Exactly.
That's how I beat Death the first time. So, Fatal Vision. What do you think? The original Castlevania.
Castlevania, that's something that you can honestly say is, like, for its time, one of the best examples of probably the perfect game. And I say that because it's got pretty much everything that you could ever ask for in a video game from the 80s. It's got great graphics. It's got phenomenal music. The challenge, it's one of those games where even today I have people telling me, how do you do this so well? I can't even get past the first stage. So it's like you look awesome when you're beating the shit out of the game, but when you're just picking it up for the first time, it's going to knock you down a couple of pegs. It's just, it's got everything. It's got great variety. It's just, like I said, for its time, it was one of the perfect games. It just ticked every single box. And, like, growing up for me, like, my parents were gamers. So, like, they were gamers before, I guess it was even a thing. So it's like me growing up, we had Castlevania 1, we had Simon's Quest, and Castlevania 1 was something that all of us played, and we could never beat it.
Yeah, it definitely is a challenge, that's for sure.
Righto. And I did want to call special attention to the music with how moody and surprisingly catchy it is. I don't think game music was quite as sophisticated as it was until Castlevania came along. I want to say Miss Kinuyo Yamashita, if I'm pronouncing that name right, really raised the bar for expected audio quality on the NES back then, and I don't know if I'm giving it too much credit, but it's
Credits too.
Yeah, no, it's
time had something like that.
Exactly. There's not a single bad tune in the game, I think.
Nope. And, it's interesting how the whole thing came together, because, it was originally created by, I think it was Hitoshi Akamatsu. And their whole goal was to make the player feel like they were in a classic horror film. So they drew on all these different aspects: Universal monsters, Hammer horror, classic literary horror, and Indiana Jones.
Definitely got the Hammer horror vibe.
Yes.
Yeah, Konami was very much influenced by Western cinema. Not even just for Castlevania, but like if there wasn't Aliens, we wouldn't have Contra. If there wasn't, like whatever trashy military action films or whatever spy thrillers like 3 Days of the Condor, we wouldn't have Metal Gear and what have you. And yeah, in the case of Castlevania, I think that the credits roll at the end with Dracula played by Christopher B., Death played by Belo Lugosi, and all those goofy parodies. They wear their influences on its sleeve, and the game's better for it.
Oh, not for nothing. Konami loves to rip off everything Western.
Yes.
Just look at the cover art for Metal Gear.
Yeah, it's just Michael Biehn from Aliens.
Yeah. Or the cover from Castlevania 2.
Yeah,
when we get there, right?
Yeah.
Yes, good point.
Which will be coming up soon.
Castlevania 1 came from another thing, too.
It sure did.
Oh, which thing exactly?
It was some drawing about some barbarian, but I mean, like, I don't remember the website off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But there was a, just a thing where it showed off, like, all the games that back in the day took inspiration from Western art, like Contra, they say is like the xenomorph in the background. You've got Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone side by side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall the name of the artist, but the art you were referring to with the barbarian, that was called The Norseman, was the name of that art piece. I don't remember the name of the artist though. I'm sure if you guys pull it up, you'll find it.
Yeah, it's super easy to find.
Castlevania. Ooh, hello. It was Frank Frazetta.
That makes sense.
Yeah, That's the name. Yep.
Damn, awesome. Today I learned.
Yeah, once we get to Simon's Quest, I got a hell of a, I think they got inspired by this moment for you, but that's when we reached out.
Nice.
And, of course, you know that the original Castlevania, I believe it started out on the Famicom Disk System, and later got a re-release in cartridge form for the Famicom 2 with an extra easy mode, which is too easy. It's way too easy. But going back to the artwork, of course, as you know, that was actually repurposed again for Vampire Killer on the MSX.
Mm-hmm.
That's a weird one. I don't know. I played it via emulation. I've only done anything with an MSX once in my life, and that was last year. So, but it was. It's an unusual game.
Yeah, I tried Vampire Killer on the MSX, and I was just like, what the fuck is this?
Pretty much.
That was like, I hate that term, and I know it likes to get thrown around there, but Metroidvania, that was like Metroidvania before Metroidvania.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely like a prototype for it.
More or less, yeah.
It's like...
Prototype is the word.
Yes. It's like, it looks like the original Castlevania, but it doesn't play like it. Yeah. Still, it's got its own merits.
The thing is, it did, and it had a lot of things going for it. I mean, like, of course I've watched videos of people beating it, because I sure as hell couldn't figure out what to do with that whole, item thing. But it had a lot of striking visuals.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the art style for Dracula. That's the one where Dracula, like, his first form is him in what I call his George Washington outfit, because to me, I always looked at the first Dracula with the powdered wig, and it just looks like George Washington to me. So, but the second form was the painting, and you got to hit the jewel on the head, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool, yeah.
Yeah, it was... I've only ever seen pictures. I don't think I've ever watched a full long play of the MSX game, but just the pictures I've seen of Dracula's forms, and it's like, that was never reused, was it?
Nope.
Never
again.
So.
Yeah, it was really strange. Yeah.
He only got to do Vigo the Carpathian just once.
Yeah.
Although there was that one portrait sort of mid-boss in Rondo of Blood, so
That's
maybe
true.
that. But
That thing scared the shit out of me.
it's very creepy, yeah.
That was creepy.
But
I couldn't get used to the whip striking speed of a Vampire Killer. I was convinced when I first played it via emulation. I said, no, this has got to be like, a weird emulation quirk or something. Maybe if you play it on the original hardware or something. But as it turns out, no, that's the speed of the whip strikes, which God, that takes forever to get used to.
yeah. So that's one I've only messed around with from time to time since. But maybe I'll get back to it one day.
But I mean, just to add something about with the original as well. I mean, once again, like I said, it's what I'd like to call probably one of the first examples of a perfect game, and it's still great even to this day. Like I've played the game to completion hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, and I'm still having fun playing it.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Plus, all these ROM hacks that I've wound up reviewing over the years, it's a testament. Because people could make ROM hacks over 3, they've made a couple, people have taken 2 and they've hacked it so that they've, fixed the dialogue issues. But with 1, you always see them using the blueprints of 1 and turning it into a new adventure.
Yeah, like, what was that first really big one that happened? Mike, you remember that?
Holy Relics?
Before that, actually, same hacker Optimon. That was Chorus of Mysteries.
That's the
Chorus
one.
of Mysteries. And then they have Orchestra of Despair and Poisonous Offerings, and I've played so many.
I haven't played nearly enough. I've actually I think, have played Course of Mysteries and Holy Relics, although I think there's another one called Blood Moon that I tried, but it was really hard, so oops.
Blood Moon was a piece of meh.
Yeah.
Not the best, no.
There's some garbage hacks out there, too.
Well, that's Unfortunately, I think that's part of the experience for everybody when they tune in, because I've had so many people say, "Hey, play Metal of the Night again," because Metal of the Night, it's like I've no whip run Castlevania, and for like to get me to rage quit a Castlevania game, that's what Metal of the Night did, because they did this deal where they just like put one block and then the next block over, you had to like pixel perfect jump it and then whip in midair, so you got that little extra pixel inch over.
God.
That is Kaizo bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't get why people like that, I'll be honest.
It's because they love to watch the person doing it freak out.
Not cool, man. Not cool. The guy
Not
playing
in
it
the
should be
slightest.
having fun.
Well, I
In my
remember
opinion.
how that video ended, because like I had wasted I had died from time running out, and then finally I pretended to call up the guy that did the hack, and I'm like, "Why'd you do it like this? Because you suck?" "No, it's not because you suck. You tried your best, man." "Yeah," he says he doesn't know why it's so terrible, and then I just killed the video because I was so pissed off.
Oh, well, that was nice of him, I guess. At least.
Wow.
I don't know.
Castlevania
But
hacks, they vary. That's all I can say about them.
They really do vary, and I mean, you know, it's that was the genesis of Random Vania. It's just because there's so many out there, I just randomly play them.
Hey, you remind me, actually, I have a fun little anecdote about the original Castlevania. One time when I was playing it, fiddly as, you know, my old NES was, and the parts themselves also being somewhat arbitrary. One time after I beat the second area, or which I guess is second stage, or defined as stages 4 through 6,
Medusa?
yeah, that stage. The Castle Spire, as I usually call it. The graphics glitched to the point that all the tiles had... They were like the colors of the stage that they normally were, but the actual tiles themselves just looked like the sort of brick and mortar ambience setting of the second level, so everything was all glitched off, and I played the entire game like that from that point on to the end and beat it like that. I consider it like a very special challenge run, and I actually had a lot of fun with it. And then funny thing is, when I actually did also, after beating the game, loop back to the second stage, and the graphics were normal again when I got back. So I don't know exactly what sort of imprinting glitch that is that happened, but it was really cool. I'm not sure if I can ever get that to happen again.
They have moments in that with that card. Like I've had tons of glitches happen. Usually, most of them happen because there's too much shit on the screen. Like if I've tried to speed run it, I think the fastest that I've ever been able to beat that game was like 14 minutes and 30 seconds or some shit like that. Don't quote me on that because I've just done it so much, but I've had runs where there's so much stuff. It's either the Knights before the Grim Reaper or those Bone Dragons before Frankenstein, where the thing just crashes and it's done.
Wow.
Ew. Dang.
Yeah.
Well, weird and fiddly though the original Castlevania can be, I definitely like it a lot more than its MSX counterpart. I kind of respect the angle that Vampire Killer was going for. It was an interesting sort of alternate take. Like, I guess you could argue the MSX and the NES Metal Gears, the latter being an alternate take on the former. And it did arguably lead to what would become Castlevania 2, but...
Yeah.
I call it my least favorite Castlevania because it's the only one I earnestly attempted to play that I could never beat, so out of spite, because it is just so BS that I haven't... I've even beaten fucking Haunted Castle, but I haven't beaten Vampire Killer. That's how bad it is.
It's because you didn't grow up on it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, people in Japan who are lucky enough to grow up with MSXs, they've studied it throughout all their lives, and they know which does what, and they know where to get the dagger, which is actually a good thing in this game, because it replaces your whip, and you can just throw infinite daggers. But then, like, if you could just, like, get that early and hang on to that throughout the rest of the game, I'd hope it'd be better, but it resets your weapons, your inventory every time you beat a level, right?
Something like that. See, Vampire Killer for me, like I'm in the same boat where I respect what it tried to do. It tried to give you like an adventure. It tried to make it like an early RPG type mechanic thing going on there. But I think the reason why people can't get into that one as much is because it's kind of like if you play Metal Gear 5 and like you can do all these amazing things like rotate the camera or do the thing like where Venom Snake like hunches down and sneaks, and then you go back and you play Metal Gear 2 and you're like, shit, I can't move the camera and I can't crawl like that.
So, anything you'd like to add about Vampire Killer, Jose?
Yeah, sure. It's something noteworthy about it is that there are hidden maps in the game, and the maps themselves give you a limited amount of times that you can look at them before they completely deteriorate. And I thought that was pretty unique and interesting. So something you could, maybe do back then would be to draw the map, when you pull it up on the screen, because you only have so many times before it breaks apart on you.
Ouch.
Aside from that, I completed it once, and it was a literal crawl. I had no health, maybe one life, and I said, okay, it's gonna be a long time before I come back to this one again, And yeah, that was the one game where the dagger is actually the best sub weapon in the game. Boy, you're never gonna hear that again.
Nope.
So, well, sir, you have my respect for beating it. I don't think even that's something I could do. And also, making jump and stairs the same button is terrible. I don't care. I don't care if it was a console limitation. It's still bullshit.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That does give us a nice segue into Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, though.
Yeah. Let's do that one. That's my favorite.
Good old Simon's Quest. Yes, this is one that when I first got it, I think I was talking to my friend Bromley, who's been on a couple of streams before with us. He'd played it already, I hadn't. And he's like, it's completely different from the first game. It's more of like an exploration kind of thing. And I ended up renting it, and the first thing I tried to do was whip the lanterns in the town to get something to come out. Nothing happened. It's like, okay, that's different. But, I got used to it, and eventually, I finished that one before I finished the original. So, I think it's a great game despite the crypticness that people like to complain about. And obviously, over the years, thanks to people like the Angry Video Game Nerd, everyone thinks Castlevania 2 is this horrible, horrible game. But no, it's actually very good. And I'll stand by that.
Well, if I could add something to that argument, I've watched his stuff since the beginning, and I kind of know that his stuff is satire. And he's even come out and said that, it's just a joke. I really like that game.
Yeah.
It's the people who ripped off his style that used it as gospel and said that, no, this really is a terrible game. And to be honest with you, when we were kids, nobody complained about Castlevania 2.
Nope. Not one bit. And I remember hearing that from him, too. It's like, that was satire. So, yeah, I basically blame the people you just mentioned for making other people think it's a terrible game.
I mean, the worst thing I heard about Castlevania 2 back in the day was that infamous Nintendo Power cover of the game where a very heavily armored Simon is holding Dracula's severed head. I think, parents actually did call in to complain about that, which is pretty great in my opinion, but...
what better publicity?
Exactly. I mean, I thought it was badass.
Hey, that's the best cover of that magazine they ever did.
Damn Skippy.
That's true. I agree.
So, let's see. Well, Jose, you want to take this one first?
To wrap up Castlevania 2, or if anything, I'd say that's probably one of my most interesting experiences regarding the Famicom Disk System. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, just whatever your thoughts are on the game and so on. We're not going to wrap it up quite that quick.
Oh, okay, yeah. No,
I still have to say more.
Yeah, that's fine. No, playing through that game on the Famicom Disk System was a very unique experience for me. Most games for the Famicom Disk System, in case people don't know, the save data and the title screen are on the front of the disc as well as the last level of a game, whereas the back has the rest of the game. But in Castlevania 2, if memory serves me right, every time you enter one of those mansions, that's on the opposite side. So
I think you're right about
I
that.
think to get one successful playthrough of that game, you have to flip that disc like a good 20 times to finish that game.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting. I said, wow, it starts to feel like a workout. You get up off the couch so many times to flip the disc, and I've only ever completed the game. No, what can I say about that game? I very, very recently completed it for the first time, maybe like a year and a half ago. Since then, I finished it a few more times, maybe 3 or 4 times. It's not my favorite in the series, but it definitely has its merits. I think it's a good game overall.
Oh, yeah, definitely. How about you, FATALVISION?
I have so much to say about Simon's Quest because once again, it's probably one of my favorite in the series next to Rondo. But Simon's Quest was one of those games that and the sentiment can be echoed numerous times. A lot of people beat that before they beat the first Castlevania. Mm-hmm. But with Simon's Quest, it was, to me, I feel it has the best graphics of the original trilogy. Case in point, look at the mummies. They look phenomenal.
Yeah.
And just the sprite work on that is absolutely fantastic. The thing that always got me hooked on Simon's Quest, though, was just the striking visuals. And the music was so iconic. And, I mean, for the thing about people saying that it's cryptic, what do people point out? They point out the red crystal and the tornado. Well, when you're in one of the mansions, you find a book that tells you, essentially, present the red crystal. And how do you present? You kneel. So it's like the penitent man shall pass. There's really dating myself there. But
can't go wrong with an Indiana Jones
2,
reference.
Simon's Quest, there you go. But Castlevania 2, I loved it, but it also scared the living shit out of me as a kid. Dracula terrified me. I had nightmares about that fucking thing. Like, I used to have dreams that, like, I was playing Simon's Quest and the screen would turn red and Dracula would randomly appear and chase me and kill me. But I guess since we're on Simon's Quest, it's just what I love so much about it is that it was a different game than the original, and I think this is something that Nintendo kind of made a practice of, because so many NES games out at that time, all the sequels of every game that they ever made was vastly different from the original. You had Simon's Quest, you had Mario 2, which, yeah, I know Doki Doki, who gives a fuck? But it was different than the original Mario. And then you've got, I guess Contra and Super C were the same, but it's like there's so many games that you could list off that were like Zelda and Zelda 2. They were all different.
It was such an experimental time.
I think it's because Nintendo didn't want to do what Atari did that killed them, which was just release the same crap over and over again. If you're a Simpsons fan, you'll get, but she's got a new hat. You'll understand where I'm going with that.
Oh, yeah.
But just Simon's Quest, my God, I love that game, even though it terrified me. And since we're talking about stuff being ripped off, and this might have been inspired from, if you actually take a look at Dracula's sprite, because I used to stare at that thing going, I'm going to get you, you son of a bitch, but after watching Vampire Hunter D, the first time that you see Magnus Lee on the rock,
yes,
it looks exactly the same.
Definitely.
It's just, I love Simon's Quest so much.
I did want to say one thing. You mentioned about your dream. I couldn't help but to think of something that Mike wrote about once.
Oh, no. You son of a... Okay. I shared it. Go ahead.
It's true. It's in Memoirs of a Virtual Caveman, and everyone will get a chance to read that again soon. But basically, it's a story of how the main villain from Rolling Thunder terrified him when he was little. Just that opening screen where you see his face on the monitor and he laughs. Well, Mike describes it in vivid detail what his dream was like in the book, and it just your dream reminded me of that.
I mean, his misshapen head and his dead white eyes and that creepy, that little 8-bit laugh. I don't know. It just sparked some primal terror in me as a youngin'.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I was afraid to go to the towns. Those green bitches, they just tear.
I always thought those zombie sprites were rather oddly creepy myself. I don't know why. Like, I get a different vibe out of them than I do the rest of the other monsters, because you only face them in the towns, and as I recall, they're the only thing you face in the towns, which, you know, being as dead and unaccessible as they are at night, I just get a sort of feeling of you shouldn't be here from them.
Yeah.
That, yeah, I don't know, just something creepier than the zombies from the first game, I will say that.
Absolutely. And then when you throw that iconic music in there,
It's a great one, yeah.
Shit.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, like me, that was my done point because I was terrified of Dracula. I get to the castle,
yes.
and I'm gone.
Love that music.
I do want to. I'd love to elaborate on that, but I don't know if the torch is officially on me here, so I don't know.
Do it.
Okay. Well, yes, Castlevania 2 I actually owned and played before the first one. Same thing with 3. Like, I think my brother got 2 and 3 from our rental shop, but somehow not the first, so... I grew up playing this and not really knowing where I was going or what I was doing, but I really liked the vibe that the game gave off. It's a... Vibe's a word I use a lot nowadays. It's almost like modern vernacular, but it just looked and sounded cool, and the fact that, you know, it just kept going and going on, even if I didn't, even if the graphics did have similarities to each other, like I couldn't tell this forest from the other, it was just really cool to explore, and I don't know when I actually got serious about beating the game, but, you know, eventually I did play through it all the way to the end, and, like, some people argue that, like, you know, this game's, boring because it, you know, is a lot longer than the first, and there aren't very many bosses, and I don't know where the hell I'm going in this game. Sure, it can be somewhat obtuse, but is it really any worse than what Sierra was putting out at the time, is a question I want to ask.
Oh, don't even start with that shit, because I had to review Manhunter New York.
Oh my god, that's one of the worst. Holy shit.
Play with that one.
I'll say... yeah, we'll save that one.
And also, Brandon, your nightmare game was Jennifer's Firehouse 3 being victim of the boar worm. Yes! We actually talked about this in the Firehouse Roundtable last week. So, that actually gave me the fucking willies, too. But, I digress. On Castlevania 2, I can't remember how exactly I figured everything out. I did think I had to look up, you know, quote-unquote unofficial sources here and there to actually beat the game from start to finish without a password, but, you know, now I hope, my memory is kind of faulty and there's a lot in the game to remember, so I may occasionally need a bit of a touch-up, but now I don't see the challenge in so much as beating the game at all. It's beating the game and getting the good ending, which means you have to spend a lot of time grinding in the mansions for hearts, because time does not move in the mansions.
Right.
And, yeah, no, I think it's a challenge to get the Orange Sky ending, which is technically the best one, although there's something really, really weird about that, but... yeah, no, the game is experimental. It's definitely not up everyone's alley. I see that Expert in the chat. It was like... I think she said it was her first Castlevania game. She had no idea what she was doing and she hated it. I don't know if she still does, but that's totally fair. I understand why this one is not as beloved as the other classic Vanias of its time. But I just have to respect how gonzo and crazy and roaming it is. It could have maybe done with an internal map, but that wasn't really a consideration that Metroid-likes had back in the day, so, you know, I can't even be mad. And yes, I do agree that the atmosphere that the abandoned castle itself at the end of the game builds with that one piece of unique music that doesn't play anywhere else in the game, and like the colors being all muted and gray and nothing at all being in the castle. Just that nothing is scarier vibe, that feeling of complete desolation, like you are... This is where everything goes to die, including Dracula himself. It's a really incomparably amazing mood, and I will agree that the Dracula sprite himself is very weird, as gigantic and skeletal as he is. Too bad he's a total wuss if you have the right equipment, but, you know.
Right.
Gold dagger.
I will agree... Yeah, or a towering flame. Yeah, the game only having 3 bosses and one of them really being a challenge, arguably, and Carmilla is not great, but this game isn't about the bosses, it's about the exploration, and it put that foremost, and I respect it for doing something different that even I don't think the later Igavanias really replicated, in my opinion, anyway.
Well, I'm
100% on board with you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, before we move...
If I could throw something out there really quick about the Seven's Quest thing, it's just really, really quick. I agree with you about the castle thing. I love that feeling of going towards something after shit's gone down, you know, because it feels like a continuation of it. They did the same thing in Bloodlines on the Genesis when you go up to the throne room and everything's all collapsed and everything.
Yeah.
But since I've played all these hacks out there, 2 things I want to throw out there for anybody who does emulation and play hacks. There is a Simon's Quest retranslation hack out there, which gives you a map, and they fix the text up really nicely. And on top of that, War Machine came out with something called Simon's Quest Chronicles, which is an independently made, free-to-play remake of Simon's Quest, and it's amazing.
I think I played that one.
Very nice.
Question is,
so look up Simon's Quest Chronicles 2 if you're a fan.
So have you ever played Super Castlevania 2?
Wait. Is that another hack?
Yes. It's one of the oldest ones I encountered, and it's like the first thing you see...
Oh my god, yes.
Toad's walking around from Mario, and when you talk to him, he's like, Simon, we all actually got into the wrong sequel.
I vividly remember that Alex from River City Ransom was one of the town sprites. That's right.
Yep. But
then there's Dishonor Thy Father, which would get my fucking channel taken down if I ever played that one.
That bad, huh? Whew.
That bad.
But
it's almost as bad as Nude Punch-Out.
Oh, boy.
Thank you, I'm
Oh, boy. That existed.
It's like cokehead junkie. But, I was going to say, though, going back to the original version of the game before we get any hacks, the townspeople, you know, a lot of them drop cryptic clues. Some of them give you misinformation. And then you have the town full of hookers.
Wait, what?
The town full of hookers.
Yeah. Take my daughter.
And it's like, was it? Sorry, pal, no time now, maybe later. Or, you know, meet me at the riverbank at midnight. Stuff like that.
This is a hack, right?
No, it's the original game.
Holy shit, I don't remember this. What the hell?
Yeah, there was one guy who wants you to take his daughter.
Yep.
Wow. Well,
and
I didn't think that was a hooker thing. I thought it was just like a sort of, you know, for the time, like arranged marriage or gentry or dowry or whatever the fuck. I don't know.
But you got to talk to the women walking around the town to get the answers, like I was talking about. And
but see, that was the cool thing, though. In spite of how funny that is, that's what makes Simon's Quest so special. Is the fact that you actually get to explore a world with people living in it that are doing shit. And what game at that point really had stuff like that?
Yeah, not many I can think of, if any at all.
Was Metroid even out at the time? I don't remember.
Wait, Metroid?
I think they came out around the same time.
Yeah, sounds it. I mean, I know Metroid didn't even have towns. I mean, like, just what other game except on the end? What other game in the NES had a similar scope to what CV2 did?
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure Metroid came out in '86, so it predated Simon's Quest by a couple of years.
Probably, yeah. I just remember Metroid release after Mario and I think Zelda. So I'm getting my dates confused. Ignore me.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think we're all in agreement about Simon's Quest. But moving,
It was good. It is good.
yes.
Boom.
Mm-hmm. But now there's something else which has been mentioned once already, but we got to talk about this one too because I remember it must have been early mid 1990. I'm hanging out with Braunley in one of Daytona's many arcades they had in their malls and on the boardwalk and all that. And we spotted a game called Haunted Castle. And we was like, this is an arcade Castlevania game. This is what? Where'd this come from? And we started playing it. And, we both got killed by that first wall where the wall attacked you. And
Would.
but we were speculating. He's like, think Castlevania 3 is going to be based on this? Which it ultimately wasn't, but anyway, it's a game. FATALVISION, you have anything you want to say about Haunted Castle at all?
Haunted Castle, oh my god. The visuals are really, really good, but Jesus Christ, that game was stiff.
That is true.
Good way of putting it.
How about you, Jose?
I've put a ton of time into Haunted Castle, actually. Mostly when it came out on the PlayStation 2 as part of a line of games that came out in Japan by Hamster.
That's right, they did do that, didn't they?
Yeah, and the more time you put into it, the more you understand it, A lot of people that don't like that game, I just feel like there's a bit of depth to the game that people don't see. Gosh, I don't know. What can I tell you? I've played it so many times. I can't. Like here's the thing: the heart system, for example, in the game, whatever amount of hearts you have, becomes health for the next level. So, say you have 20 hearts, and you have, you lost 16 health that level. You're gonna get all that health back, and then you're gonna have 2 hearts remaining in the next level, if that makes sense. The music is fantastic. Admittedly, some of the bosses. Yeah, some of the bosses, I feel like there's like the giant golem. That one's very poorly done.
That guy sucks. I hate him.
He has that golem has unavoidable attacks, but
Exactly.
if you play it smart and you farm for hearts in the game, and by farm I don't mean standing in place and doing it, just I mean conscientiously collecting your hearts and using your sub-weapon sparingly, you can obliterate the game. It's something you can master.
I need to keep that in mind. I've only played it a few times via emulation since that arcade experience over the years, but I'll make it to maybe stage 2 and get die and just be like, all right, moving on to something else now.
Yeah, although the skeletons do deal a godlike amount of damage, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So I guess you could say it's unbalanced in that regard. There are certain enemies in the game you have to watch out for because they will literally take half your health just from touching you. But once you know which enemies to look out for and you know which bosses you can tank through, stuff like that, it's very manageable. It's very doable. I've purchased that game just about every time it's been available, and I feel like a lot of people are quick to look past it. I think there's a lot of good there.
I gotta say, you have probably spoken the most positively about Haunted Castle I've ever heard anyone say before. Just
Same.
Mhm. So I'll have to.
I will say I don't hate the game, and I have actually even beaten it once, like I mentioned before. That being said, I had to play the Japanese version, which is relatively fairer than the Western version. You don't take nearly as much damage in it's easier in a way that Ghosts and Goblins Japanese arcade version is easier, kind of. But it is still pretty unrelenting. Simon's sprite is very huge and a little clunky, even compared to his NES counterparts. The difficulty raises pretty exponentially in Stage 3, what with that random point where you get whisked away to a weird dimension full of harpies. I hate that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, the aforementioned Golem is pretty awful. The last stage, several Castlevania games have the bridge run, but this one feels extra long and stupid for some reason. It's a game that is certainly full of perils, but it looks and sounds nice, and I like it a little more than Vampire Killer for what it's worth.
So do I.
If that is worth anything, probably not much, but okay. Well, it's got cool aesthetics, even if its gameplay is just foobar, but not the absolute worst CV has ever been, in my opinion, I will say that. However, Simon using a sword is complete heresy, I will say that.
Yeah, it's not something you usually see him do. All I know is that I would have bought the game if I'd been there when that arcade was selling out their games years ago. I almost had a Contra arcade game for $250 from that same place.
Oh, that'd have been nice.
Yeah, unfortunately, no place to keep it, no place to even transport it. We had no trucks or anything, so oh well. But yeah, so Haunted Castle, it's, I'd say, decent game, very flawed. Definitely intended to be a quarter muncher, but there are
flaws. Yeah.
there are definitely worse Castlevania games out there. But so where does everyone stand on Castlevania: The Adventure for Game Boy?
Yeah, I don't.
It's a decent launch title. I mean, for that, you know, it was a Game Boy launch title if I remember correctly. And
It was. I think it was their first game for it.
yeah, so that's not, you know what I mean. When you look at it like that, you know, I feel like it wasn't bad. It's only 4 levels long. That's pretty short, but you know, every what's it called? Every successive playthrough, like, you know, the difficulty keeps increasing. So I guess it sort of gives you a reason to keep playing it.
Yeah.
It has a secret in every. It has one secret in every stage, which is pretty cool. Like one major secret, whether it's an invisible rope or a floor you can explode and go underneath, and it had some cool ideas.
It
Yeah.
was so slow.
That was my
That's
biggest
true.
problem with it right there.
I concede in that regard. Yeah, it's definitely a slow game. Yeah.
You know, the two things that stand out to me about that game are the lizards. When you hit them, they yell bullshit at you. I swear to God, go back and play it, and you hit them and go bullshit like that. And then
I remember those things.
bone towers that they have down there. They remind me of the demon from the Amityville Horror 3D.
All I know is I do not like it when you get your whip powered up and every time you get hit, you lose your power.
Oh, that was bad.
Yeah, that is annoying. Yeah.
But once again, there is a hack out there that fixes it. This is why I'm a proponent of hacking, of
Yeah.
ROM hacks. There's a hack out there that actually makes the game move at a decent speed, which incrementally makes the game better. But the power-up thing, they take that away so you don't lose your fireball attack. But at the same time, it makes the game unbelievably easy.
Well, I remember
Interesting consideration.
struggling through it back in the day, making it all the way to Dracula and dying. Never did finish it because of that.
He was an asswipe in that one, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that bat form is just kind of really arbitrary, as I recall. Man, what do I say about this game? Also, sorry, Fatal. Do you have anything more to say?
The only thing else I can say about it is just thank God it's short.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know what? Not to shit on it completely. The music wasn't bad, you know. And as much as I laugh about the bullshit lizards, it's just the one thing that really holds that game back from being enjoyable. Aside from having gigantic eyeballs getting thrown at you all day, is it's just that the game is very, very slow. If it wasn't that slow, I'd enjoy it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do find it a bit ironic. Castlevania itself is already a somewhat relatively meticulous action game series, or not moving the fastest, sure, but Like, Adventure is just slogging through a molasses pit. I guess Konami wasn't really used to the Game Boy hardware or something. I don't know why this one turned out the way it did, all sludgy and glitchy. And I don't want to say this one's worse than Haunted Castle, but its aesthetics aren't as good. So, I guess that's a little unfair. I don't know. It's a toss-up as to which one I think is less bad. I still like this one a little more than Vampire Killer, for what that's worth, but...
Well, Haunted Castle was a pain in the ass, but at least it was a pretty pain in the ass.
A very pretty pain in the ass. I completely agree.
Castlevania Adventure, on the other hand, it's slow as shit. You know, you just, when it's like, hey, I'm about to start killing stuff. And then that one little fucking bird comes out of the sky and hits you. And then it's like, oh great, now I'm down to the spaghetti whip.
Yep.
Yeah, to quote the angry video game nerd, the whole powering you down if you get hit by anything in the game is a certified "what were they thinking" sort of moment that I'm glad they rectified in this game's direct sequel, to be sure, but
yeah.
Like, the only thing I can unambiguously say about Castlevania Adventure is that the music is really good. The first stage, music in particular, Battle of the Holy, as the track is called.
That's a great track.
It's fucking great, yes. The rest of the music's very good too, but that one is just really especially good. Even then, it kind of gets outmoded by its direct sequel, Belmont's Revenge, which we will be discussing, because that one has an even better soundtrack. So it almost feels like there's no reason to play this one as it is. Haunted Castle serves a unique niche as being the only Castlevania arcade game, but this one I feel is more or less obsoleted by Belmont's Revenge, so maybe it is worse. I don't know.
You know, here's what gets me about the whole Battle of the Holy song. It was actually remade for use in Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth, but for some reason, didn't make it to the game.
That is extremely ironic. What the hell?
Yeah.
I just don't get that. But
They like to throw away good music.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they sure do.
Although on that official soundtrack, they also remade the first stage music for Contra Force, which I never expected.
Wow. That sure is a game.
Yes, it is. Archound, that it is.
Yeah, that's the game it should be, yeah. So weird.
Well, I'd say from here, we're going to move on to the first great Castlevania game since Simon's Quest. I think y'all know what's coming next.
Actually, things pretty much get better entirely from here on out, almost universally.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And that game, of course, is Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse.
Oof.
All right. This is the stuff.
Yeah, this was one of those games. I remember seeing a preview for it in an early issue of EGM. And, Braun and I were talking about it. It's like, they might not come here. They're saying they're still considering it, but they haven't reached a decision yet. And then, sure enough, that October it showed up. And Brawley got it first, brought it over to my place. I didn't want to see it because I'd asked for it for my birthday, and I was pretty sure I was getting it. But, I was like, what the hell? Went out and watched it, and was like, I cannot wait to get my hands on this one. And when I did, absolutely loved it. So, that said, Mike, I know you have a lot of thoughts on Castlevania 3, Tetris Chamber, but anything in particular you'd like to talk about it?
Well, Tetris Chamber notwithstanding, and I will elaborate on that to be sure.
Just remember, I have the quack button ready to go.
If I get carried away, please do. But I have said for a long time that Castlevania 3 is genuinely my favorite video game ever, not even Castlevania. I have more nostalgic attachment to this one than I even do the first, and it just felt like the complete package to me for what a video game should be. It looked fantastic due to the unique mapper it was using, like the MMC5 chip or whatever it was called. Soundtrack was exquisite. Composition and instrumentation of the tunes, not to mention so much catchy, and had some real percussion going as well.
Aquarius.
For all the Aquarius, which I almost think that one's like a sequel to Bloody Tears in how thematic it feels, but that might just be being carried away. I don't know. Yeah, the music just ranges from it's like very jazzy to very creepy, depending on the level. Yeah, of course, let's get the elephant out of the room. The game is very hard, and some would argue even to a prohibitive extent. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it is, compared to the first Castlevania, which I think does feel, relatively tame by today's standards, I still think CV3 is a real knuckle-biter. It is not easy in the least. I mean, I think you can get past the first few levels without much strife, but once you get to the ghost ship or the swamp, whichever path you choose, things get a lot hairier from there, and the game doesn't really relent. I would argue that the last stage is at least easier than the stage before it as a mercy, because that penultimate stage is just so evil. But,
especially with the doppelganger boss.
I've never beaten that one, quote unquote, honestly. I've never done a solo Trevor run.
Keep hitting select.
Yeah, that's all I really can do. That's all I know how to do. Outside of just, saying, fuck it, we ball, and just trying to blitz them with triple crosses, which I haven't even done that. I'm a poser, I know.
I actually did do a Trevor-only run once, many years ago.
How hard was it? I gotta ask.
Extraordinarily.
Oof. Yeah, I'm not sure I could. Yeah, I mean, the premise of this game was basically like Castlevania 1, going back to the form of the first game after 2, so experimental. The first Castlevania, but a lot longer. Trevor's partners that, he could play as the acrobat Grant, the magically powerful Sypha, or the mostly useless, except for that one thing, Alucard. But,
they redeemed him later.
At least, yeah. And then also the branching pathways, which added a good chunk of replay value as well. Although, if I just want to beat the game with much less stress, I always go the Sypha / Ghost Ship route. Because if you go down, you gotta deal with the fucking abandoned mine. And this is the one stage that even I think is too much for me. I can mostly handle CV3's vicious difficulty now, but some days I just can't deal with the mine and the infamous fucking Tetris chamber, which, if you fellas have ever played that, you'll remember the one area in the mine, which is already a really long level, where you have to wait for every individual block to drop onto the screen and then to just form an upward platform to the top of the screen. And this took fucking 5 minutes on its own, and it really feels like anti-game design. It feels like that sort of shit wouldn't fly in quality testing today. So CV3 ain't perfect. It is arguably maybe too hard for its own good and kind of unwieldy considered compared to the first game. But for maybe being a little bit overboard in its content, I do also think it is fantastic and impressive for what it does. And it took me a long time to actually beat the game as a kid, but I felt really good when I did. And then, of course, I did it again with another pathway and another character. Maybe I'll get that solo Trevor on Sunday. I don't know. We'll see.
Who knows? How about you, Jose?
I do find, just for counterpoints, for the sake of playing the devil's advocate, I'd say some of the enemies take way too many hits in that game, and they really, really slow you down. The axe armors are the biggest culprit at 8 hits apiece. And the skeleton, what do you call them? The bone towers. God, they go by so many names. The bone towers, they take 6 hits. Outside of that, I think it's a ton of fun. I think it's a great game. I love the fact that you can choose to play as so many characters, and the various branching paths. There's a lot of fun to be had there. I just wish some of those enemies took just a few hits less. I mean, I'm sure we've covered the music already. That's fantastic, especially if you
Yeah.
play the Famicom version. The music is
Even
godlike.
better, yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's godlike on there. I wish. I just wish a few of those enemies took a few less hits. It really kills the pace for me. I agree that the easiest path is definitely, Trevor Sypha route. And yeah, it is painstakingly just, God, waiting for those blocks to fall was not fun.
No, not
I've completed
slice.
every path and every route with every character. And I'm pretty sure it's the reason I'm developing carpal tunnel today is Castlevania 3.
Valid.
Yeah.
Quite valid.
Before we,
Alas.
I just want to say, Expert brought up a really good point here. He said they beat Famicom Castlevania 3, and the NES Castlevania 3 was too bullshit for her, and that's saying something. Which,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played through the NES version first, then the Famicom one. It seemed a little too easy. So,
It is fairer in how it deals damage out to you, certainly, instead of the... Yeah, it's like the weird damage system thingy that, like, in the US version, and this is how the first Castlevania worked, you take more damage depending on how far into the game you are, but they were less lazy in the Japanese version and actually assigned damage values to different enemies, so, getting jumped into by a hunchback, or flea man, if you will, does not do nearly as much damage as an Axe Knight's Boomeraxe, so...
Yeah. Oh, I should mention this actually before I forget to, because I feel like it's critical information for anybody who plays that game. The same way that bosses crumble in Castlevania 1 with the holy water, that does the exact same thing to the doppelganger in Castlevania 3, so be sure to use that, guys.
Yeah, the holy water is still powerful in this game. It doesn't feel as dominant as it did in 1, but it still do some real damage. I need to consider that if I ever do a Trevor only.
Yeah, it melts the doppelganger immediately. He's no challenge with the holy water. So keep that in mind.
if I remember
you.
correctly, that's actually how I beat him when I did my Trevor run.
Old school him.
Yeah.
It's so easy. I should have thought of that. For as much as I'd done that in CV1, what the hell's wrong with me?
It shocked me too the day I figured it out. I dropped it in the corner while he was chasing me, and then he fell into the corner. If you remember, there's like a platform in the middle.
Yeah.
He was walking along the platform, towards me, and then the moment he fell into that corner where the holy water just happened to be, he just melted and screamed. I was like, "What the hell just happened?"
Nice.
Yeah, keep that in. Yeah, it's a good one.
Oh, yes. So, how about you, Fatal Vision?
Well, first off, the falling bricks section. Listen to this. That's how I feel about it. But,
It's a pile of falling bricks. That is true.
it's a pile of falling shit.
Yes.
The Dracula's Curse. It's one of those things where there's something good and there's something bad about it. The good about it is that it is a beautiful game. It has excellent graphics. The level design is really, really good. And the bosses, for the most part, they're pretty inventive. It's a good game. It's a great return to form. But the negatives about it for me is the game tends to repeat itself. Like with the scrolling tower shit. I hate that fucking thing.
Yeah. And
I absolutely cannot stand that. I also think it's extremely stupid how many times you have to fight the Cyclops.
Cyclops.
Oh.
You can fight the You will have to fight the Cyclops 3 times throughout most. At least I think the ghost ship route. No, wait. Yeah.
It's
No. If you go the
multiple no
ghost
matter
ship.
what.
Yeah, if you go the ghost ship route, you do have to fight the Cyclops 3 times, which is like. This just feels like padding, fellas. Why did it have to come to this?
Yeah.
It repeated itself, and it was fucking annoying as all hell.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna rescue Sypha, that's one. If you're gonna do the ghost ship, that's two. And then there's the third one, where the Leviathan, who does Dracula's second form in the original game's attacks.
Yeah. I do
So
think that
it's
was
just-
cool, boss. Yeah.
That was cool, but it was still fuck you. I don't want to do this again. But it was the scrolling towers that I hated more than. And this might actually get a little bit of heat, but personally, I think that the game is a little too long. It tends to wear out its welcome around. I don't remember the name of it. I mean, I know Castlevania. It's it was with all that green shrubbery and shit, where you had to go up the waterfalls, and that was another annoying thing. Is the bone towers on the stairs?
Oh,
we
yes.
did that a lot.
I believe that was the penultimate stage, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was the penultimate annoyance because it was so annoying. And then you get to the last level, which can be a bit of a breeze, but I would say
add
that
to that, going up to all I was going to say, sorry, was going just adding to that is going up and down the clock tower to get Grant. Just makes that oh my god, it just makes it even worse.
Yeah, Grant.
But at the same time, though, you can just fall down, and if you know where you're landing, you're out there quick.
Yeah, this clock tower is very weird and not anything that I think's ever been done in any of the other classic games, where it's a completely optional area and the only purpose is to get one of the partners. Whether or not you think Grant is worth getting over Cypher or Alucard is certainly up to you. I mean, frankly, he's my favorite partner, even in the NES version where they massively nerfed his attack. But I do like how his jump is controllable and how agile he feels. Although Sypha's incredibly powerful sub-weapons are also not to be denied. Alucard kind of sucks in this game, except for his bat transformation. That will help with the Tetris chamber, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
But you only if you have the hearts for it. If you die past that part, then no, you gotta do it the quote-unquote honest way. And like, fuck yeah, I'd rather just start the goddamn stage over.
Yeah, no. Alucard's sprite is like double the size of everyone else, so the big dolt gets hit all the time.
Yeah.
It's just like, you go through that thing, and all you're gonna hear is whoop, whoop,
whoop, whoop, whoop, whoop. Yeah.
You know, and not long after, you know, it's just like, fuck you. But I mean, I definitely say that the pluses outweigh the negatives on it. It's a great game. Yeah. My claim to fame on it, I guess, is I attempted what people might consider a pacifist run, where it was like the no whip thing, where I tried to go through the game without attacking unless you get to the bosses. And I mean, that was a slippery slope with the first one, because everybody bitched about that. Well, you use sub-weapons. Well, you attack before the boss is fully moving. This one, no one seemed to care about, but the only way that I could do it was with Grant. And, I mean, I had a really cool video of fighting Dracula, you know, but it was just... It's a great game. It's just, it tends to run a little long. And, I mean, at almost an hour playthrough, and that's if you're having a good time, you know, it can wear you down.
Yeah.
You're not wrong, although I think that the length complaint is even more deserving to another game we'll be talking about tonight. But yeah, at a maximum of, I think, 10 stages on an average playthrough. I forget if that does include the clock tower or not. This maybe go on a little bit past its bedtime, but for the most part, I enjoy it still every playthrough I have. It is more unwieldy than the first Castlevania, I will give you that, but I have more nostalgic feelings for this one, so what can I say? It's my relatively favorite of the series, even though I acknowledge some games are probably better than it. And also, props to the axe for its shining hour in this game for making the fight against Dracula very easy. Like, it is much easier anyway. It is maybe the axe isn't the worst sub-weapon compared to the dagger, but it is a lot more, I think, esoteric in its use. But no, the final battle against Drac is, it's 15 minutes of fame. Scott Pilgrim's finest hour, so to speak, so.
Although on a related subject, I do like the fact that Death has two forms in this.
Yeah, his second form is really cool, I gotta say.
And the
very creepy.
And that one is the one that's doing the laughing that you hear when you're entering your name at the beginning. I always thought that was Dracula until I got to him.
Yeah, exactly.
So, very cool stuff in the end. So...
I agree. That was cool. And then you see Pazuzu with you, and you're like, what the fuck am I going to do with this thing?
Yeah. Oh, but, so, yeah, it's got its flaws. Yeah, it sure ain't perfect, but it is very good. So... But, you know, that was the end of Castlevania on the NES, or so we thought at the time.
Almost.
Yes, there was something else.
Sure.
And I'm sure everyone here by now knows about Kid Dracula.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
Now, that is an interesting little game. I remember first playing the Game Boy version of it, the sequel. It's funny, too. I actually bought it at a local game store, and it was the import version.
Huh.
So, and then later on I found out there was a Famicom prequel, and I had to pick that up at some point. So, whenever, I think it was when eBay finally started doing their buy it now, instead of just, because I got sniped on a couple of auctions for it originally. But
Oh yeah,
that sucks. But, it's a fun game. It kind of makes me think of, like Mega Man meets Castlevania.
I can agree with that.
Mm-hmm. So, anyone have anything in particular they want to say about Kid Dracula? Either the first game or its sequel. Yeah, go ahead.
Kid Dracula, I feel, is a game that is remembered for all the wrong reasons.
How so?
Well, let's put it this way. It actually has good graphics. It's actually a pretty fun game. It's highly playable. The music's not too terrible. It's an interesting take, playing Kid Dracula and all that, cutesy. It's like, I'm sure Dyer will appreciate this one, but it's like, Splatterhouse Wenpaku Graffiti.
I was waiting for someone to bring that up.
Came from the era where parody games were even a thing, so...
But what do people mostly remember that for? The Ku Klux Klan with the symbol on his head.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, Jesus, yes.
The one in the Game Boy version is better, though. Because they bring out the third one who's, like, really old, and he can't do jack.
I would like to hope that's a commentary on how feeble and impotent the Grand Wizard is, but I might be giving the game too much credit.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. But, I've played it, and both it and the Game Boy version. Game Boy version is definitely better, because, being the sequel. They improved on the first one quite a bit. But, in all honesty, I don't really have a lot to say about the game.
Yeah, it is a perfectly fine game for what it is, but I will admit it. This might be a little bit too biting of a word, but it does feel a little bit more generic, and it's how it's made. It's like it doesn't feel like Castlevania to me in so much. It does. It feels like it does lack. It is cute and amusing for what it is, but I do think it does lack a little bit of its own identity. Compared to the rest of the Castlevania series, and compared to Wanpaku Graffiti, which I still thought was very unique, even compared to the rest of the Splatterhouse series. I don't know. I don't remember too terribly much from this one, except that in the Famicom version, you quote-unquote fight the Statue of Liberty, but instead of actually being a fight, it's actually a quiz game instead, which I thought that was pretty cute. Unfortunately, that wasn't in the Game Boy version, but the Game Boy version did have a boss that looked like Jason, but attacked you with a shotgun, which I don't think Jason ever actually used in any of the movies. He did use a harpoon gun, but not an out-and-out gun like that. Yeah, the GB version is more refined, and it does have those mini-games, which gets you some bonus lives, and does feel a little bit more well-rounded, because as Eugene notes in the chat, the last few stages of the Famicom version, they get pretty bullshit. Surprisingly, for as cute as the game looks, it does have some serious fangs to it also. So I would say the Game Boy version, even if it doesn't have the Statue of Liberty quiz bit, is more eminently playable and definitely worth a pick, but yeah, I can't say I have too terribly much to say about the games. I like them, but they just aren't Castlevania to me as I know it, and I know that seems a little unfair, but I don't know how else to put it.
It's true, really. Although, one thing I do want to say, I do consider Jason there in the Game Boy game to kind of be Konami's little nod to Splatterhouse.
That might be the case, because Rick did use a shotgun. Mm-hmm. I'd like to think that. That's a good point. Never actually considered that.
I brought that up in West Mansion.
You did. My memory sucks, as you know. But yes. Womp.
So, how about you, Jose?
Noteworthy detail, Galamoth or Garamoth, depending on how you want to pronounce it. He's a boss in Symphony of the Night as well as Kid Dracula. So there's
Fucking crazy, yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting connection to those games. Aside from that, the Game Boy version definitely feels a heck of a lot smoother than the Famicom version does. The hitboxes aren't as wonky in the Game Boy version. I guess I don't have much to say about it either.
How about you, FATALVISION?
I'm kind of in the same boat. There's not really a whole heap load to say about it. It's a good game for what it's worth, but for it being a Castlevania game, I don't know. That's a rough. It's like it's rough, I tell you. But it's like you're playing as Dracula. So who the hell are you supposed to fight? Galamoth? Up to that point, Galamoth was like the Thunderbird in Zelda 2. It was just a one-off appearance of something you don't know what the hell it is. And I'm seeing Noah saying, I don't need Alex Kidd in my Castlevania. Yeah, fuck Alex Kidd. I hate Alex Kidd.
We could have a discussion about that, FATALVISION.
I'll make it really, really brief. Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle was the first review that I ever did. And I had the worst time in the world playing it. And that's kind of how I knew that I should be doing this sort of stuff. Is because I couldn't figure out the jump mechanics for it. And then I was like, sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. That's a reoccurring theme with this game. You know what I wish? Sometimes I wish this game was fucking fun. Because then I'd have a lot more fun while I was playing it. So it's just, I've got a special place in Alex Kidd in my heart for its crappiness and, for what it is.
I played more than enough Alex Kidd to make up for both of us then.
Yeah, that rock, paper, scissors. He says jumping fart. That's all I can ever remember.
I'm going to give you that about the whole junk and matches thing. That's just like, okay. But
but on the Castlevania subject and all, I'd say it would be a good game if it wasn't Castlevania. And I do agree with the consensus, though, that it was way better on the Game Boy. And I think at this point, Konami had gotten their shit together on the Game Boy. Mm-hmm. And they started making better games for franchises on the Game Boy. Like, this was better than the NES one. Skater Dite was better on the Game Boy than the NES one. Yeah. Those Turtles games were better than the original Turtles game on the NES. I mean, the arcade game was good. But at this point, it was just... If this was not a Castlevania game, I'd say it was pretty goddamn good. But calling it a Castlevania game, Castlevania is something where it has a lot of standards. You need to just be some medieval dude or dudette, depending on if we're counting canceled games or not, and have a whip.
Yeah, which Kid Dracula does not have. So,
indeed.
All that said about it, as you know, that was released basically as things were changing, and we started to see the dawn of the 16-bit era. And with that came our first 16-bit Castlevania, known over here as Super Castlevania 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that...
Everybody loved.
Yes. That was another game which, I didn't have a Super NES for about first year or so after it came out, but when I got it, I think it was the first game I got. And I liked it. There was something that felt a little off about the way Simon controlled compared to the NES games. But overall, I got used to it pretty quick and, basically blazed right through it. I still love playing through it from time to time. So, Jose, your thoughts on Castlevania 4?
It's a bit longer than I would prefer. I think it could have actually done.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it would have been better with just a couple levels less. Not that many, maybe just 2. With that aside, the music's fantastic. You're going to hear me say that about just about every Castlevania game,
but I think it's especially true in this one. Go on.
Yeah, it's very jazzy. I can't think of a better word to describe the music in Castlevania 4 that on its own is very jazzy, and I can't really say the same about any other Castlevania game. It's at least as far as the way the music feels. The 8-way directions of the attacks and the being able to twirl the whip was kind of cool. I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's a track that they completely removed from the game, and they didn't end up reusing it in future Castlevania titles. And it's it's actually a very, very, very good song. I highly recommend you guys look into that.
What's it called?
It was in Super Castlevania 4's beta. It's the Mad Forest stage. You remember that stage in the game?
The second stage, the original music was so good.
Yeah, they completely replaced it with an entirely different track, and the song was fantastic. God, I'm gonna have to. I'll send it to you, Satanga.
Oh my god, I gotta hear this. Nice,
so good. And they never used it.
But on the subject of music being jazzy, in Stage 3 when you're going through the Greek ruins, right before you get to the Vipers, I always felt that stage music sounded like something out of a Charlie Brown special.
Interesting.
And considering it was the Vince Guaraldi Jazz Trio that composed all the soundtracks for those, now it makes sense.
Well, I'll be doodlebugged.
That one?
I think so. And I see.
No, you mean the one, the third part of the stage is like. That one's really weird. It's almost like prog jazz or fusion or some weird shit. And it has that real flute sound in it, yeah.
Even in the caverns level on the beta, that was a different tune. Like they added stuff to it.
Yeah, it sounded almost like an extended version of the track. Yeah, that's an interesting point there. I'm gonna drop this into the chat. I encourage people. Oh wait, if I even can, I'm not even sure if I'm a mod or not. But you know what? I'll just DM it to people.
Okay. And I see Eugene dropping hot takes over in the chat.
I don't know if that's gonna work or not, but it's okay. I'll send it to you. By the way, Satanga.
Hey, thank you. Well, I would like to address Eugene, but I don't want to override Fatal or Jose if they prefer to go first. So.
Well, you can go ahead.
Okay. First, Robbie, you have anything to say about CV4 at large?
Myself, I think I said pretty much everything I can think to say. And on a side note, Jose, I did just make you a mod over there.
Oh, cool. Thank you for that.
No problem.
And I just DM'd you the song, by the way. You guys have to listen to that on your downtime. I just can't believe it didn't get used in any future game.
I will.
Oh my god.
Absolutely will right afterward. But yeah, Super CV4, dumb title, as it were, especially since this game is actually a very, very loose reinterpretation of the first game. It was just simply called Akuma Joe Dracula in Japan, so... Super Castlevania, sure, but the 4 just feels kind of gratuitous, in my opinion. Yeah. That's just getting down to semantics, but this was also a game that I had long grown up on, and also played before the first, and... I really do like it a lot, but I have been seeing a lot more criticism against it as of late, for some reasons that I don't think are entirely unjustified. I mean, this game's still a top 10 Castlevania game for me. I do really like it, and the graphics are really fantastic for the most part. For a very early Castlevania game, it has this sort of like dour sort of persistent settings. Like, it's relatively more muted in colors than lots of... Actually, compared to games before then and many of the games that come afterward, it feels like it's going for a deliberately darker atmosphere, which I think it pulls off in tandem with its fantastic soundtrack, which was I'm pretty sure mostly full of original tunes composed entirely for this, and like, God donut. But yeah, I mean, I really like the Stage 4 music and how that was like a 2-part suite complementing itself, and like the dreadful mood of In the Courtyard, or whatever the Stage 5 music is called. There's just a lot of great stuff go around there. Aesthetically, I think the game fucking nails it. Except for the Mode 7 parts, which, yeah, don't look so hot nowadays. Stage 4 is most guilty of that sin with that one room that's just, hey, look what we can do, and then stops the gameplay for, like, at least 2 whole minutes, maybe more, to show you the SNES's power, and now it just feels dumb, and, like, that's something that could be easily removed in a ROM hack.
Well, it was one of Konami's first games for the Super NES, so they had to show everything off.
Yeah, they wanted to flex their muscles for better or worse. I think that the game also does play very well. It is the best controlling that Simon or really any Belmont probably has ever been before any of the IGA games. Being able to whip in 8 directions, some people argue, makes the game a little too easy. I think there is some modicum of challenge to be wrought from it. I mean, as a sort of compensation, the holy water is shit in this game. Unfortunately, the cross is really the only sub-weapon worth having for the most part. The axe might have a bit of use in some cases, but yeah, I do think it does play very well, and how well Simon controls also fits what they're overall going for in the game. But I will admit, something about the game at times does feel maybe a little flat. Like I said, and this is something that Jose touched on, I said earlier, I didn't think for the most part the Castlevania 3 ran too long. This one, I think, kind of does. It could have been cut down by a couple levels, and the fact that it doesn't even have any branching paths like CV3 does also make that feel a little bit more of a sting. Like, Stage 5 doesn't even have any boss in it. That one's just kind of like a filler level, even if I like the music. That one could have been entirely cut. The fact that the Stage 2 goes on after you killed Medusa for some reason, that could have been cut. Stage 3 has, like, 3 different parts, and I really think that one could have been a bit more compartmentalized.
Hey, you know what else they could have cut? They could have cut
me
that. No.
Rambling about it?
Well, I was about to go ahead and get you with an air horn, but I was going to say
fair.
They could have gone ahead and cut that stupid razor spike wheel in the final
fuck
stage.
that bullshit.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
it's weird. For 95% of the game, it minds its P's and Q's, and then it hits you with the most fucking infuriating scene since the Tetris Chamber. Maybe it's worse than it. I don't know. I mean, not just the wheel itself, but also the chase, where if you just make one fuck up, you lose. And then that part with the platforms floating up to the upper right, and how fiddly the hitbox is of fucking instant death spikes. I hate it. It's not good.
Yeah.
At all. But yeah, Eugene said that he hates all the gimmicky Mode 7 levels, the weird rig controls, the music is good, but not for a Castlevania game. He thinks it's ugly. The Mode 7 is ugly, sure. The rest of the game that's open to interpretation. It's not as colorful as other Castlevania games. It goes for a very unique mood that I like and respect, and for the most part, I still love this game very much, but it could have used a little bit more time in the cutting room. It feels like the Konami wanted to throw a lot of ideas to the wall with this one, and they decided to leave almost everything in that they did, arguably to the game's detriment. But I will shut up now.
All right, Fatal Vision, how about you?
All right, we're going to get the one big thing out of the way. And the Mode 7 stuff, I respect that they wanted to try something new. I respect that they wanted to try to show off what the SNES could do. But Mode 7 was like fucking 3D. They went out of their way to like show everything. Like when you watch Friday the 13th Part 3, it's like the guy trying to adjust the, you know, like the clothesline. And he's like adjusting the pole so it looks like it's coming at you. It's like they're trying so hard to show this shit off. And I'm like, okay, I get it. The first level, it starts off phenomenal. You've got the bats coming out of that skull mountain in the background. It looks beautiful. But then you've got gimmicks that they attempted in the beginning, but they never, ever, ever touched them again. Like, when you first start the game off, you're going back and forth through those gates. Like, so you're going in the background and in the foreground. I wish they would have done that more, but they didn't, and I don't know why. It's something that they could have made it a little bit, you know, it could have changed up the gameplay a little bit. The music, yeah, it does not fit with the Castlevania song, and unfortunately, aside from the end, when they started rehashing the old tracks that we know and love, is there really a tune in 4 that like you'll just like randomly hum? Like I said, Aquarius, you know, you could just, you know, but in this one, it's like, what are you gonna do? You know.
I
Well-
would say I do find myself whistling the cave theme in the first part of stage 3 occasionally.
Yeah, but you know what? It sounds like the music in fucking Goonies when they were picking up the coins, going, "This is our time." But no, it's just the music did not fit for the most part. It sounded nice,
Fair,
but it just didn't fit with the game itself. Just wasn't enough memorable stuff. Mode 7 stuff was way too gimmicky. Like I remember, I used to get sick to my stomach going on those goddamn chandeliers with the red light in the background. It actually made me feel ill.
Oh yeah, no, that part was fucking gratuitous as well. I could have done without it.
But you know what? One thing that I do think that was actually really, really cool was Fred Astaire and Paula Abdul.
Oh God.
I love
Fucking
that.
manual names, yes. Yes.
I thought that was the fucking coolest shit ever.
It's pretty great, yeah.
But I do agree also that it could have gone a couple levels less. The last thing feels like a grind. But I do got to admit, though, that Grim Reaper fight, that's probably one of my favorite ones. Like when he throws it around, he's got the fingers going, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I do think that the final boss gauntlet is really cool, even if Slogra is a little bullshit.
The treasury level was really cool. I agree with Noah there. That was cool when the money was going. It's like Scrooge McDuck's money bin got fucking haunted.
Yeah.
All the ghosts floating up in the front, maybe a little cheesy. Great music in that stage too, yeah.
There really was cool shit, but then there was some stuff that was really a slog. Like the dungeon level when you're fighting Frankenstein. It's one of the shittiest fights ever.
Yeah.
He's pretty easy in that one. Like he just throws a lot of potions and expects them to do the work. Frank, come on, man. What you doing?
The rolling wheel thing with the falling steps that can eat shit and die.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The mummy fight outside the clock tower. It was kind of interesting. I kind of look at Super Castlevania 4 as almost like a loose sequel to the original. Because if you think about it, you know, Simon fights Dracula, and you know he gets the curse put on him, and that's why we have Simon's Quest. Simon fucks up the ritual at the end because, you know, apparently there was a relic that he didn't know about, Vlad's tooth. And then we get to Castlevania 4 where Simon's got to go back and kill Dracula again. Because like when you do the Dracula fight, notice there's one window that's already boarded up from the first time that he fought him.
Oh hey. Huh.
So I kind of look at it as a sequel, which by proxy means that Simon is like the shittiest vampire hunter ever. He's so bad. That's why he's famous, because he had to go back and do it 3 times in 100 years.
Yeah, it kind of. I guess the modern day term is fail son. Compared to Trevor, who was just one and done, he was just the fucking Mac.
But
although he did have a little help from his friends, so there's that.
One thing I will say as a positive though, because I don't want to shit on it, because you know what, I remember getting this game like Christmas of '92. My parents bought a Super Nintendo. We had Final Fight, this F-Zero, but Castlevania 4 Forward Simon was a very cool game. I love fighting Dracula for that very last time, and then when you get him halfway through and he disappears, and then the lightning hits, and you hear that bam.
The reprise of the theme of Simon, so fucking good. It's very cinematic.
It was like shit just got real.
Yes.
You know, they finally got that moment when shit just got real. So it's got its pluses, but it's also, I can forgive my complaints about it because they were still learning and they were still trying something new on a new platform.
Very true.
Absolutely.
So at the end of the day, people claim that it's like the greatest classic Vania ever.
No.
I wouldn't put it in that category. I would say that it's a very fucking game. It's a very good game, but it's a victim of its own hype. And once again, this goes back into what we discussed earlier about Simon's Quest. When AVGN did that Castlevania-thon, he talked about, this was the perfect experience. And once again, everybody was like, well, yeah, James Rolfe said it, so it's got to be fucking right.
I don't want to advocate too much for Dyer on this tangent, but that might be a symptom of SNES was the bestest disease that he's run into and is quite an advocate against, but
the Marios and the Zeldas and the RPGs.
That should be its own roundtable, actually. But
It just might be.
What, the quote unquote console wars?
No, just more of a hot takes, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, I'd love to be a part of that because I have a couple. But no, it's Castlevania 4. It is good for what it's worth. It does have a lot of pluses, and it's kind of the same thing as 3. It's got some negatives, it's got some pluses. It wears itself out in a couple areas. And if I was going to compare the two for the 16-bit era, I know we're going to touch upon this one, but absolutely feel that Bloodlines kicks the shit out of 4 in a lot of aspects.
I will have to agree, actually.
Yeah. But before we jump into Bloodlines, well, there was the second Game Boy sequel, Belmont's Revenge.
Yes.
10 out of 10.
Excellent.
Such a good game.
Underrated. I love it.
Underrated, but fuck that Soleil fight.
Yo, yeah, I'll give you that. That one's bullshit.
What the fuck was up with that music?
That's actually attempted translation of a J.S. Bach piece, if I'm not mistaken.
You got it, Sotenga.
The only time, actually, that and Claude Debussy's Passipede, or however you pronounce that, the only time classic music, public domain classic music, was ever used in a Castlevania game, oddly enough.
Well, once it picked up, it sounded good, but the initial part, it was like, this is like that basement music in the DualShock Resident Evil.
Kind of an assault on the ears, I will give you that, yes.
But no, Belmont's Revenge, oh god, I love it.
Yeah, it's improved everything over the original Castlevania adventure.
To a frighteningly high extent, oh my god. I don't know, Rob, you go first before either of us gush about it.
Well, I played Adventure first because it was, I think, the second Game Boy game I ever played after Tetris. And played that one years later, when I got a Super Game Boy. And I was just impressed by how much it was more like, the console Castlevanias than Adventure was. And also the fact you could actually choose which stage you wanted to start in, that was nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Mega Man approach.
Yeah, so, and the music was so much better, and everything was just like, wow. They're never going to top this for the Game Boy. And I was right. We'll get to that later, though.
I would argue that it's the best handheld Castlevania to come out to date.
I can get behind that.
That might be a little bit of a tough sell with Aria of Sorrow, but otherwise, I think you could maybe validly claim that.
Yeah.
Something noteworthy, too, is that depending on the region of the game, whether you have like a European or U.S. copy of the game, one of the sub-weapons is replaced, whether you have the cross or the axe, and that changes the game drastically, too.
Crazy, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And unlike the first one, I actually finished, too. So.
It feels like it wants you to beat it, yeah.
Yeah. So it was another plus.
I really like the formula of being able to choose the stages. I wish Konami would revisit that with a future Castlevania title. Just being able to pick the stage right out the gate.
That'd be nice.
I love that gimmick.
And, of course, that had one of the best themes in the entire series in there. I think it was New Messiah.
Yeah, the Crystal Castle theme is sort of like your nudge to have that as sort of the first level, and, I like Battle of the Holy a lot, but New Messiah somehow nukes it out of the atmosphere. It's just... This is one of the best Castlevania tracks ever made. It's a real pump it up, fuck yeah, very
good.
Rock prog sort of... It's just fantastic. Holy shit. How do you get this sound out of the Game Boy? Which, to be fair, I think did have a more powerful sound processor than the NES, for at least by default, but it's amazing.
It definitely had industrial vibes for me.
I think I could hear that, yeah.
I know.
I mean, industrial music at its core is like printers malfunctioning and shit like that. And I'm not knocking it because I'm an old school rivet head. It's just, I get the joke that, like modern industrial is just throwing pots and pans down steps.
Oh yes, definitely.
Pretty much.
But no, soundtrack phenomenal.
Yeah. But it's been ages since I played that one, so I don't really recall a lot about it offhand. I just know it was good.
Well, I mean, as I recall, the Crystal Castles had these weird jellyfish enemies in it. The Plant Castle, I think, was the one that brought back the infamous eyeballs in the exploding bridges. One gimmick I really liked in the Rock Castle was that if you destroyed the candelabras, you'd actually make the screen go dark.
That was a really cool detail. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think any other Castlevania had done that. It's like every stage felt like it had its own definable gimmick and atmosphere, and again, the music's just thoroughly great throughout, like Ripe Seeds and Psycho Warrior, whatever they were called.
Oh my god, yeah.
And then also the bosses were completely unique to this game. Instead of using more familiar faces, it's like Crystal Castle has this wizard who's apparently a magic crystal also. And then this one's like this giant armor suit who's really slow, but then you destroy him and now he's really fast and he's jumping around slashing energy waves through the air. And the angel mummy from the Cloud Castle. What the fuck is an angel mummy? It's apparently two skeletal heads that share vertebrae that they pass back and forth with each other with, like, boomerangs. This game is fucking off its shits, and I love it.
Oh my god, yeah.
It feels like sort of the first Castlevania 3 and 4 had cultivate a little bit of an expected atmosphere, and it's a great atmosphere and I fucking love it still, but Belmont's Revenge just felt really strange and experimental even compared to them, and I thought the results actually came out pretty well, like how unique this game feels and how relatively original, and also the gameplay is just overall universally improved. It goes faster on the whole. You actually have sub-weapons. You don't fucking lose your whip power unless you get hit by the balls that those weird, like, fish-shaped monsters spit out.
Yeah, from Jody the Pig from Amityville Horror 3.
Oh, that's the one that you were just... I see. You know
that
what?
asshole's in both of them.
He is, yes, exactly. He is. And now he has that special power, but...
Because he's a douchebag.
Exactly.
He is, yes.
And
and then you beat the four...
I was going to say, I totally forgot about the Angel Mummy until you mentioned it.
Crazy fucking name. What the shit? And then when you get to Dracula's Castle, oh wow, another really fucking great tune that's like almost speed metal. And then it's like 3 parts also. It feels really epic. And like I said, the only part I would say is frustrating is that the Solyu fight is almost as bad as the doppelganger fight in CV3, except you don't have the partner trick that can help you this time, so it's pretty fucking tough. Although the final battle against Dracula is also tough for what it's worth. Thankfully, you continue if you lose. And he only has 1 form in this game, notably enough, but it's not an easy one, I can't say that. But, Belmont's Revenge is just kind of the whole package. At this point, I'm thinking, shit, I think I like it even more than Super Castlevania 4. Do not sleep on it because it's a portable. This is one of the best classic Vanias out there, I assure you.
Great time.
Yeah,
Great time.
Definitely. Anyone else have anything to add about Belmont's Revenge or move on?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You know that Christopher Belmont, after this was all done with, took Soleil home and beat the shit out of him.
What did you think you were doing? You're not ready for this.
Talking about fail sons, and we never got a Solyu game. I mean, Christopher himself is already.
You know why? We didn't get a Solyu game because he beat the shit out of him. And he's like, you are not coming in this fucking season. I'll do it again.
Yeah, Christopher, I think, noted as being kind of like the old Belmont, as it were. But,
well, you know what? If anything, if from a serious perspective, though, all joking aside, I think that this, canon-wise, is a prequel to Dracula's Curse. And because of Soleil fucking up and turning to the dark side, that was why the Belmont family was excommunicated and they were like outlawed.
That makes sense.
Oh wow.
So
That's a good point.
so if anything, excellent continuity. But I mean, like it does make sense to me at least that hey, this whole thing of him happening, it was like, well, even a Belmont can get corrupted. So fuck him. Let's get rid of him.
Actually, that was a very similar case with Richter in Symphony of the Night, and that was like when the Belmont bloodline just kind of hid itself out for a century and a half. That's a good consideration. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. Jose, anything else?
Yeah, there's a comic book series. It's only 5 issues that stars Christopher Belmont. I believe it's called the Belmont Legacy.
I think I read that one.
Whoa! I've never heard of this. Holy shit.
Yeah, so if you're ever curious about, if you're just hungry for more Christopher Belmont, even though nobody is, they should be, but nobody is. But
Belmont's Revenge is amazing, but poor Christopher, he doesn't get nearly as much cred as Simon, Trevor, Richter et al. I think like the only one he might have any sort of substance over is Juiced Belmont, or however you pronounce that. But
yeah.
He's underrated because Belmont's Revenge is underrated. He's unfairly rated because Adventure sucked, but no, I'll stand up. I'll stand up for Chris. He ain't bad.
Yeah, Chris is a good dude.
Yeah, he is. So we finally reached the point where we've gotten to our last, essentially loose remake of the original Castlevania, which no one outside Japan knew about until about 2001 when it got released for the PlayStation, along with a slightly enhanced version. That would be Akumajo Dracula X68000, known over here as Castlevania Chronicles.
Lovely game.
Crazy, yeah. I really like this one too, yeah.
It is a good one. I remember it was a budget title when it came out with the PlayStation. It was like $20. And now what's going for like $300?
Everything goes for too much nowadays.
Yeah,
unless it's a sports
true.
game.
Still. Excellent game. I remember actually importing it, before it made it to the US, and it had some kind of weird bug in the game where some of the music would glitch out from time to time in stage 2. But to this day, I've never beaten the original X68000 version, although I've gone through the PlayStation enhanced mode a couple times. And a couple neat things about that is I swear that the shopkeeper from Castlevania 2 shows up in a secret part of that game.
Oh, wow. You're probably right. I just don't remember.
Yeah.
Looks a lot like him anyway. And, you get your typical Castlevania stuff. I find it funny, that Frankenstein's monster's not actually a boss. He's a sub-boss in this one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, poor guy. He got subsided by just the overall arrangement of things. It's like, it's very interesting. X68000 here is very much more apparently a remake of the original than Super CV4 was. Like, I mean, the first stage at first is just almost a one-for-one recreation, save for a hilariously nasty troll, where the good old wall meat is now replaced by an infinite stream of flea men. That kind of cracks me up, to be honest.
Yeah.
But aside from that, yeah, no, it is one-to-one, and then it immediately jags by having the second stage be a cave, not unlike the fourth stage of the original Castlevania. And then the second stage is more like the fourth stage. The third stage is still the third stage, the courtyard, but then it goes in an original direction because the first game, unless you count the small part of the final stage in the original, you didn't really have a clock tower. Now we have a full-fledged clock tower, and it's a fucking bitch hole of a level, but what can you do? And then we have the crumbling bridge, which was in the last stage. Now it's the sixth stage, and this completely original and weird, creepy Hall of Mirrors area, which is really neat.
Yeah.
Or ballroom, whatever you want to call it. And then the seventh stage is outright the fifth stage, and the eighth is, well, it does feel a bit more extended, a lot more extended, compared to the final stage of the last one, but the Castle Keep is familiar. So it's like this sort of massive arrangement of the original Castlevania that doesn't play things straight and just mixes it up in a surprisingly organic way. Like it's, it really is interesting what it does as a remake, even if it is also arguably I say, much harder than the original. Oh boy.
There is two things I want to bring up about it.
Sure.
One would be the Tower of Dolls. I remember
That's beautiful.
Yes, absolutely gorgeous. But those talking dolls were creepy.
Very. Yeah, it felt like something out of a Japanese horror film, like Hausu or what have you.
Mm-hmm. And playing through the import first, it was like they said things all the time. That was all cut out of the U.S. version.
Mm-hmm.
Except for I think the last thing they say when they die. And then the other thing, probably the most important contribution to Castlevania that was ever made in this game. So I'm going to read 2 words. Ninja maids.
They did actually become... maids actually became a somewhat standard enemy in the Igavanias later, so yeah.
Probably because of
right.
Sounds like a personal thing.
Maybe he had a thing for maids.
Maidavania.
Yeah.
It's a fetish for some, so I gotcha.
Well, sounds like
Yeah,
something
Chronicles has a lot of Easter eggs and just treasures that if you like, that you could really appreciate. The boss, the werewolf boss, ripping the numbers off the face of the clock and throwing them at you.
Oh, that part was so fucking cool. Yes.
Yeah, and then ripping the hand off the clock and swinging at you like a club. I thought that was really cool, and something noteworthy too. Actually, it's in the last level. There's a hidden room that has a giant crucifix with Jesus hanging off of it, and if you stand in front of it long enough, a 1-up appears. I don't
think I've ever seen this. Holy shit!
I have.
Yeah, it's a really nice detail.
That's a nice touch. Yeah.
Wow.
Music, you can't, let's check that off the list, right? The music's good. Music's always good. The Tower of Dolls theme is actually my favorite theme in that game.
Oh yeah,
in the stage
great one.
Right before that, Moonfight also. It's also one of my favorites.
Yeah, I will have to put in an asterisk for the music. The instrumentation quality is not very good if you go with the default channels for the game. But there is also the option to use like the Roland and like an even better version of it. This was actually an Easter egg that was translated to the PlayStation version. You had to like hold the shoulder buttons as you activated the stage. And yeah, if you use one of the other takes on the soundtrack, yes, no, the music's fucking phenomenal. Some familiar tunes in there, some excellent original ones as well. Also, notably, the latter
Mike,
form of...
One thing before you go on. I just wanted to point this out. That Easter egg is only in the American one. From the Japanese, it's available right from the beginning.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, shit, that might explain it then. I'll have to see if I can find the elusive Jesus in that case. But, But yeah, I also did want to note that the final boss music is called "You Goddamned Bathead," and that is just fantastic. Some of the original bosses for this game, the giant skeleton dragon, the ice wizard, the aforementioned werewolf, very cool stuff, even if poor Frankie got nerfed, and the mummy, I think, just got booted entirely, so... tit for tat, it's certainly not like a 100%, makes the original obsolete remake. No, not in the least. This is partly a remake, but it's got more than enough original content to also stand it as its own thing, but even if the game is pretty fucking hard, even compared to the original, it is very much more well worth a play for anyone who hasn't hit on this gem before and wants a very strangely awesome new take on Castlevania. And also, yeah, the arranged version is pretty neat, even if it makes Simon a lot more Bishonen. But I like a lot of the arranged tracks in it as well, even if the first stage music is very ravey. But yes.
Yes. Fatal Vision. Your thoughts?
Chronicles was one I didn't grow up with. And it was one that I really hadn't heard of. Like, I gotten it on, well, let me take a sip of my Pepsi here, because I got the Burgess Meredith voice going on here.
Actually, you know what? I can use a drink, too. I'll be right back.
Excuse me. All right, but yeah, see, there we go. It's all better again. But no, Chronicles, unpopular opinion. I wasn't too hot of a fan of it. I mean, some parts look downright ugly, and sometimes you might feel like this is a remake of the original Castlevania. This is more of a remake to the original Castlevania than Super Castlevania apparently is. Some parts are downright ugly. I hate that fucking dragon in the waterfall thing when he uppercuts the log bridge out from underneath you.
That's annoying.
That was probably one of my most hated parts about the game. But in spite of my gripes about that and the fact that Simon is very slow, very stiff, probably one of the worst instances that I'm going to bring up yet. But it was a very slow and stiff adventure for me. But I got to say things like the wolf fight, phenomenal. I love the whole castle keep bursting into flames. That looked really good.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot of really, really good things about this. Dracula's second form makes me laugh my ass off because it looks ridiculous. The way his mouth is just like like that, you know? So it's just maybe I don't have the nostalgia glasses on for this one because I didn't grow up with it. But it's definitely something that if somebody was like, give me a good Castlevania game to play, like someone who's never played one of those before, I wouldn't start with this one because they'd be turned off by the difficulty.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that.
That's true. Yeah.
So,
it's just the difficulty in being able to play the game as Simon, which is weird.
Yeah, I could definitely see there's a point there. I mean, there's a reason I haven't finished the original version yet. So,
Yeah, it's brutal.
If you're ever brave enough to get through the original mode multiple times, not only do the enemies deal more damage, but they become more aggressive overall. I reached the point in the game to where the giant bat in the first level was literally a Gatling gun, just firing at me, and that's when I had to throw in the towel. I said, "My God, I didn't know this was possible."
The radar guided vermin looked pretty awesome, though. I liked the way it looked. It actually looked like a serious bat.
yeah, that it did.
So there was some pluses, but I'm meh.
Okay, that's fair. So let's say we go ahead and go into the next one then.
Oh yeah.
Do it.
Aquamajo Dracula X Chino Rondo.
My fucking favorite.
Yes.
Nice.
Oh
That-
my.
That was a game I remember seeing reviews for it in like the import section of EGM and whatnot. And once I got a Turbo Duo, I was like, I got to play this game. So I found a little mail order company that was selling copies for like $94. And this this is 1995 money here too. So,
Ooh.
but I was like, I don't care if it takes my entire paycheck for the next 2 weeks. I'm getting this game. And I had it actually delivered COD to me, and loved every single minute of it. Almost, I think I probably loved it more than pretty much any Castlevania game before that.
Yes.
Mm.
So, Fatal Vision, your thoughts?
I have got a lot of thoughts about this one. This right here is, to me, the perfect Castlevania game. It's the best of the classic Vania series. As much as I love Simon's Quest, it outdoes it. And, I mean, let's start off with, it introduced so many new things. It introduced the branching pathways that were seamless, like where if you go up the little escalator thing, you wound up outside, which I thought was cool. You didn't play outside of, you were outside the castle again, which was really cool. It didn't just take place inside, like most of them.
Yeah.
It gave me that throwback to Simon's Quest. You had multiple characters, Richter, Maria. You had rescuing, all those people, which offered different endings. Probably my favorite form of Dracula, both his first and final. The soundtrack was absolutely amazing.
Oh, was
the
it
Dark
ever?
Priest Shaft fight I fucking loved because you got that original throwback of like the Castlevania boss music when you fought all the original boss fights.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It's just everything about this game was perfect.
That
Richter moved well. The sub weapons were cool. The item crashes. It's just that you even have a turd man appearing. That's what I call flea men. I call them turd men. It's something my father called them. My father called them turd men, and it stuck with me. And that's what I call them when I play through Castle. I'm like, the goddamn turd man got me. But like even a turd man comes and steals your special ability. And plus, this game actually gives you new sub weapons. And not just with the Maria, but I mean, like, you've got, like the Bible and the item crush attacks. And then playing as Maria, that's a whole new experience. You want to try all her shit out. It's so wonderful. And every boss that you fight is a kick-ass experience. It's always a fun experience. I mean, even when things start off in the original level, before you quack at me, I know I'm ranting. Just the werewolf jumping out anime style and crashing into the front of you. Like after you leave the room where you fought the original bat. It was so goddamn good.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
And
good call out with the original bat room. Nice.
Yes. And, this may not come as a surprise to anybody, but I think the boss battle with Death is my favorite one in the entire game.
That's my favorite Death fight, yes. I love it when he's midway through and he turns brown. And he gets all kung fu on your ass.
Mm-hmm.
But even the original fight, when he's throwing the skull heads, and it's like from the background to the foreground, I love the visual effects.
Plus, it's really cool how he appears in the prologue stage. Just shows up and he's like, exactly.
I think I saw someone compare Death to Slash from Guns N' Roses in this game because of his hat, which I thought was an amusing image, but
I thought that was in another game.
Oh, maybe.
Well,
Shit, I don't
he's
remember
definitely
exactly.
wearing some kind of tall hat when you first fight him, and then when he whips it off and he has his classic Death robes on, and he does his side like he's freaking Voltron or something,
Yeah, and he throws that skull head at you, and you break his shit. But once again, with the throwbacks, I love the first level towns from Simon's Quest.
Yes.
So you feel like you're revisiting everything that you had played before in an all-new adventure.
Mm-hmm. It's just...
I just can't praise it enough, and I'll let someone else talk about it.
Yeah, Jose, I think you're up.
Sure. To add to that, I'd say the boss's desperation moves at the end were a really cool, unique touch. Like the Minotaur attempting to uppercut you as he's deteriorating. I'm trying to think what other desperation moves there are. There's the serpent boss in the alt path.
Mm-hmm.
It launches out of the water and tries to hit you. They have these desperate final attacks that I thought were really cool. The werewolf punching the earth,
and the beholder, that thing when it just like circles around and then just tries to come down right on top of you when it's on fire.
Yeah. You're right about that. Yeah, it tries to collapse on top of you, basically.
Is that ugly brown head thing that reminds me of that fucking thing from Big Trouble in Little China?
I think so.
Yes.
That bastard.
The Duggether, I think it's called. Yeah.
Yeah,
that boss gave me a lot of trouble last time I played this game. I don't know why.
Something that one of my friends pointed out to me, back when I was still learning how to play the game, and I thought it was the funniest thing. He said, dude, this is a lot of fun. He said, try to punch the bosses in the face with the key sub weapon, and it's the funniest thing. Dude, when the werewolf is lunging at you, you just throw the key out there and just smack it in the face and just watch it just fall back. I don't know if there are any other Castlevanias. I'm trying to think of one where maybe you can hit enemies with the key or the bosses with the key, but it's so satisfying just smacking them in the face with it. It's the funniest thing.
Yeah, none that I could think of. So,
I'm trying to think of other details maybe that just really stand out to me about that game. I feel like Fatal covered a lot of it already, but I mean I agree with everything he said. Like the branching paths were fantastic. Or if you remember that pirate that takes your axe away, preventing you from accessing one of the alternate paths, and the way he takes that axe and just giggles at you and just goes away. Nice little details like that, or the reward of the hidden stage 5. You actually have to clear the game once to even be eligible to play that stage. Even if you take the correct hidden path, you don't get to play that stage unless you beat Dracula first.
That big bomb.
Yeah, the big bomb.
That's one too, yeah. And then there's I'm trying to think of the one. I lost my train of thought. Well, there's a lot the game has to offer. I think it's a terrific game.
And what about that little hidden room on the ghost ship?
Oh yeah.
It's like there's nothing in there, but
Yeah, the door to nowhere that only Maria can access, right? Yeah, that's a really strange room.
yeah, it's like it was something that was just unfinished. And of course, that's where that painting we mentioned ages ago is. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Looks like Sir Francis Drake or something like that.
Yeah, or Death cutting his own head off with the scythe as it comes down. That's a really cool.
That's the best part of
really
that fight.
cool.
Oh, and
Oh yeah.
and of course the ending.
Dracula X Chronicles. I should throw that out there. Dracula X Chronicles. You guys probably already know this, but the Hidden Stage 5 is actually redone entirely, and there's a Hydra boss fight in that one that wasn't in the original.
Yeah. I've heard complaints about how the remake turned out in that, but I never minded it. You know, It's like it's got an interesting polygonal coat of paint on it, but it still plays basically the same. There's some new stuff, so what's not to like?
Right.
Doesn't even Dracula have a third form in that?
Oh God, yes, he
Actually,
does.
that overrides the one comment I was going to pipe up if you get to me. Sorry.
Yeah. Let's
you're in timeout, Mike.
I know I babbled a lot the last two entries, but Fatal and Jose already covered this one, so I'll keep it brief. The only outright complaint I have, at least as per the original game, is that Dracula is kind of a pussy in this one. Compared to how really tough the fight against Shaft Ghost was and how much more effort Death put in, Dracula just feels kind of rote in this one. He feels like an easier version of how he did in the original NES game. And, that is kind of a letdown, but otherwise, no, this is probably the perfect Castlevania. I can't put too much more on it that has already been said. It's A+ in everything. It is notably a little bit easier than past Castlevanias, a little more forgiving, which I think does help it out to be a more accessible game, but it is still very challenging. At least if you're playing as Richter. Maria totally destroys the game, but she feels like an awesome bonus. Like, she feels like dessert after you had to eat your vegetables. She's just a fucking delight to play as.
And I love how it's all cutened up.
Yeah, it's like...
Even the title cards that pop up are different for her.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that, I think, EGM or something had, a guess what game this is from, and it showed a very anime-looking screenshot from her ending with all her animal pals, and when I found out that it was a Castlevania game, I think my brain just, flipped over 5 times in my head trying to comprehend how that was even possible, but, this game is a little bit more lighthearted also than past entries due to that very more heavily progressive anime of the time influence, but it just comes together all so very well. Dracula's Chronicles. Oh yeah, she does have the she does kill the enemy with her singing. That is true. Yeah. That is another great touch. And Chronicles, the graphics are maybe a little weird looking, the model's a bit janky, and the remixes of the music, it is sort of hard to beat the originals in that case. But you can't put in the original soundtrack you want, which is pretty neat. But the fact that it actually gives Dracula a very goddamn challenging third form does fill in the one flaw that I had with the original. And also making the alternate stage 5 a much more actual stage instead of feeling just like a kind of weirdly assembled hodgepodge like it was in a debug room. I like that quality about the hidden docks level in the original, as it were, but it is also it feels like an omake, as is the Japanese nerd term for that, and I could understand that about that, but also making its own level with a fully unique boss in the Chronicles version was pretty neat. I just wish that I could backport the new Stage 5 and the Hydra and the special succubus fight if you don't rescue Richter's girlfriend also. Yeah. And the true final Dracula in this game. I wish I could backport that into the original's graphics, but alas.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
But
that would.
now, whichever version, if someone could fucking mod that, like, I'd actually pay them if I had fuck you money. But
Exactly.
it is. I still nostalgically like Castlevania 3 more, but for all intents and purposes, this is the closest to perfect a classic Vania has ever gotten. I can't argue with it.
Yep.
And you are right. It is way more lighthearted. I always think to myself, like, after that game's over and you rescue everybody, can you imagine that carriage ride back home? Just Richter. I told you not to leave the fucking windows open. This is what happens. And that dress, I did not get you that dress. I'm a fucking vampire hunter. I work once 100 years. I can't afford that shit. He gave that to you. You wore it. Like, you can just see it.
I mean, notably, Richter has a much more of a fashion sense than the sort of leather Conan sensibilities of his ancestors. So I don't know. He's making some bank on some side hustle. I don't know what. Maybe he works as like a gravekeeper on the side. I have no idea. It's some cult
It
bullshit.
explains why he was in the graveyard in the intro.
It does.
Yeah,
make
that's
sense,
what I was
yeah.
thinking.
There you
Headcanon,
go.
as it were.
But hey, in the intro, he also looks like Ryu.
That
This is
too.
true.
Yeah.
It's fucking Ryu Belmont. But the other thing too is what do you call it? Fucking where was I going with that one? Shit, I forgot.
Well, if it comes, you
I'll
just let us
remember it
know.
later tonight.
Yeah.
No worries. This happens to me all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
man.
So that being the case, let's move on to the other 16-bit game that was not quite as good as Dracula X, but everyone agrees is far better than Super Castlevania 4, and that would be, of course, the Genesis exclusive Castlevania Bloodlines.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's actually my favorite game in the franchise.
No kidding.
Yeah, I think it's really good. It's one of the few soundtracks where I can name just about every track in it. It has two very different characters in terms of play style. You know, Eric
yeah.
Lacard with the Alucard spear, if you want to call it that. And it has some of the most interesting trivia in the series as well. And you know, it has ties to Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is interesting too. If you're an avid reader.
Yep. I also like the fact that it actually takes place in the closing days of World War One.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah.
So it's like at the time it was the most recent out of the bunch of them. Mods in here. Okay, kids had Castlevania Horror, but real men play Bloodlines.
It's an awesome. It is, and you get a slightly extended ending if you beat it on the expert difficulty, which is a nice little reward.
And I love the globe traveling aspect of it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
That's
Castlevania
very
World
true.
Tour. Really
Pretty
cool
much.
idea.
Yeah. It's like, I think my favorite stage in the game, though, has to be the second one. It's just, the music is great. I mean, we all know the music's great anyway, but that theme in particular really stands out. The Sinking Old Sanctuary.
Sinking Old Sanctuary. Yeah,
And
that's a great track.
The part where you actually knock that giant stone head off, that just looked so smooth to the Genesis.
The big bow noise it makes when it drops.
Yeah.
Bow.
Oh,
Yeah, that was really cool.
That was one of those games I had to have as soon as I knew Konami was doing games for the Genesis. And, of course, we have to have BL85 chime in with his anti-Genesis stance here, sir. Yeah, don't mind him. This is a running thing we have.
Gotcha.
But, yeah, between that and Contra Hardcore, I knew I was set on the Genesis for Konami games. The other ones they did were pretty good, too. I mean, Rocket Knight Adventures. But rather than go into that, let's talk more about Bloodlines. Keep going, Jose. Anything else you want to add to it?
Oh man, because I actually, the thing is when I complete a Castlevania game NDR, what I like to do is I like to add trivia where I plug in. I like to plug in trivia as well as artwork for the games into the video itself. I found out it was actually supposed to have 2 additional characters, which were Yoko. They called her Yoko Felnades, which they changed that later to Yoko Belnades when they plugged her into Aria of Sorrow, and it had another character. Gosh, I'm trying to remember what his name was. They had a Eric Boltson or something like that. He was like a dwarf-like character with a big club. So that was pretty interesting. It was supposed to have an additional level as well, which they even mentioned in various magazines, which was supposed to be a haunted ship on the English Channel. That was supposed to take place between stages 5 and 6. Yeah, it's a shame that got cut, really.
Yeah, there's also the munitions factory in Germany, I think, got cut too, didn't it?
Yeah, they cut 2 areas from there. Yeah, they cut out God, what are they? They cut out like a. Somebody help me out here. I'm sure one of you guys knows. I'm trying to remember the
Zeppelin,
name.
I think.
Yeah, Zeppelin. Thank you. That's the word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it had a Zeppelin area, as well as not a furnace. What's the word? Like a place where they melt steel and such.
Smelting room or something like that.
Yeah, and those are in the beta, actually. If you guys haven't played the beta of the game, that's available. Somebody leaked it, so, get your hands on that and play it. You'll find interest in those unique areas.
Definitely. So, yeah, I have played the beta myself, so I can vouch for that.
Prayer of a... You guys are familiar with the track Prayer of a Tragic Prince from Symphony of the Night?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's Michiru Yamane's work. Actually, Castlevania Bloodlines was her first Castlevania soundtrack that she worked on, was Bloodlines, and there's a song in there called The Tragic Queen. So a lot of people believe that Prayer of a Tragic Prince is a nod to her earlier work.
Huh, that would make sense.
Maybe, yeah.
I do love some of the original bosses in that game, too, like what they call it, the Princess of Moss in Versailles.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was awesome. And the fact that, when you get to death, how he's got the whole tarot card thing going on.
Oh, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's funny. The harder the difficulty is, the fewer life refills he'll throw out. I think, the hardest he doesn't throw any out at all, does he? Except maybe like one. Maybe. It's been ages.
Oh, you talking about the health?
Yeah, he's got some of the tarot cards. You hit it and it just showers down meat.
Yeah. One of them does that, unless you're on hard mode, in which case he doesn't have a single card that does that, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it's been a long time since I played through that one. All right.
The ghost of I'm sorry. The last thing I'm going to throw in there, just as a bit of trivia, it was actually in the developer notes that have also since been leaked. In the developer notes, it stated that the Princess of Moss is actually the ghost of Marie Antoinette, which is a really strange but interesting detail.
Oh, so we have an LDP raid going on.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Yeah. It's like
Hey,
another
thanks,
raid.
dude.
Great. So, Fatal Vision stepped out for a minute.
I'm back.
Oh, he's back. All right. So, unless you have anything else you want to add, Jose? But if not, we can go right to what Fatal Vision thinks of Bloodlines.
Bloodlines, I thought, was an absolutely amazing game for the time. I mean, the Genesis was always better at 2D graphics, personally. It was always better at making moody music, which is what I feel is a critical component of any Castlevania game, is to have really good music.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I had to take a sip there. Excuse me. But arguably, it also added new things, which is something that Castlevania definitely needed at the time. It needed new shit. You had new characters. It gave you new locations. You were able to visit, Germany, the Castle of Versailles, and all that shit. And they were all different. There was something unique to every single stage that you visited. And plus, Sega didn't have to worry about censorship like Nintendo did. So you could see blood. You could see crosses. You could talk about Elizabeth Bathory.
Yes. She's actually one of my favorite bosses from the series.
But if there is one thing I will say, that final boss, that skeleton thing with the stomach thing, that looked ridiculous.
Yeah, admittedly, that did kind of a little bit. Especially the way it stretched.
All in all, great game.
Yes, definitely. All right, Mike, you're on a timer.
It's okay. I'll try and keep it lean, but Bloodlines is really fantastic. The whole actually setting in the 20th century thing was already something that quite set it apart from its predecessors. And, that the stages had a lot more variety because of the European World Tour premise of it was just so freaking cool. Like, the music, for the most part, was really well designed. I find the Stage 3 music a little maddening, but I think that was done on purpose, and it was effectively conveyed quite well that this is a horrendous place to be on the Leaning Tower of Pisa, of all places. But no, the rest of the music's really fantastic. Some very fun and interesting enemy and boss designs. This game definitely ups the ante in the boss department with, like, the gear monster in the munitions factory, and that one boss that's based on the "Are you looking at a vase or two faces" illusion. Weirdest fucking boss in the series yet. It's fucking bonkers.
That boss was actually a fan actually made that design for a magazine from Japan.
Oh my shit, I never knew
kidding.
that. That's so cool.
Yeah, they entered that in a contest, and that was the winner. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Holy damn, that's really neat. That, again, today I learned. Very cool. The game just moves faster than Super CV4. Time feels less wasted, and an overall playthrough, I think, can last less than an hour since the game is mercifully only 6 stages. Although it can be tough, and for some reason it's one of the few Castlevanias to have limited continues in it, which just kind of feels a little stupid and moot because you also have passwords, which kind of overrides this. I don't know why I put that in the first place. Minor nitpick, but it is what it is. I like the graphics are just really, really colorful. Like, as colorful as Rondo, if not even more. It's just so much variety in the stages and the enemies, and, like, that cool, if not frustrating, like, split mirror effect that you see in the last stage. Holy shit, that is far more impressive than any Mode 7 trickery in SCV4.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Definitely.
Amazing as that is, yes. I'm not sure if I really have many complaints of the game. Okay, well, the fact that you have to refight 3 of the end bosses of Stage 2, 3, and 4 when you go to fight Death is kind of padding. I'm not fond of boss rushes like that. And, Eric is so blatantly better than John, it's not even funny. But, yeah, maybe that was on purpose. Like, Eric was built to be more of the easy character, and while John's more of the, for veterans, sort of difficulty selection there. I can't really think of much to criticize about this one. Bloodlines is just a really fantastic package of a game, and I would say better than SCV4. I remember looking at it in a rental shop and lamenting I didn't have a Genesis then, but I am so glad that I eventually got to play it, and it's definitely a top 10er of the series, and probably even a top 5er among the classic Vanias specifically. It's just really damn good.
Yeah.
Damn.
So,
Nailed it.
all right, we got one more 16-bit game to cover. And this one, I'm going to open the floor to FATALVISION first, because I suspect we may have a little bit of a debate about it. And that would be Castlevania Dracula X for the Super NES.
Fuck that game.
Okay, counterpoint. Don't fuck that game.
Yeah, don't, because you know what? There's a chance it'll fucking escape and breed.
Okay, but in all seriousness, what do you hate about the game?
What I hate about the game basically is that there's a bit of a debate. Is this game a port, a failed port at that, or is it its own original thing? I'm in the camp of that. I feel that this was, Nintendo thinking that they could port Rondo of Blood over to the Super Nintendo, and then when they got it, they looked at it and said, holy fuck, our system's not nearly as powerful as the Turbo Duo. And they had already committed to the project, and they gave you that bogged down piece of shit. Here's my reasonable, as I like to call them, complaints about Dracula X. For one, Richter moves like shit. It's probably one of the worst handling I've ever had in a Castlevania next to Adventure. It's really terrible to move. The game's difficulty is enhanced by that bad mobility, and it's completely held back by it. I think that they did try to, make the best of it, but once again, the game handles so poorly that it just doesn't work. And then you have Dracula in a thong flying around with a bunch of bottomless pits. What the fuck?
Okay, I will give you that about that fight. That is a terrible fight.
Well, what about the other parts when, it's a bottomless pit? It's fucking Pitavania. It's like you got all those bottomless pits. Yeah. You got 17 skull dragons going on, along with douche heads flying around.
Yeah, they did ratchet up the difficulty to a little bit of a bullshit level, but I still didn't find it really all that hard, to tell you the truth.
Why did they make it like this?
I don't know. I'm of the opinion that it wasn't actually a port, it was a sequel. And I don't think Nintendo really had anything to do with it. Konami was the one who said, hey, let's go ahead and use some of the assets we had in the Turbo Duo game, PC Engine Duo game, and make a downgraded kind of sequel for the Super Famicom. And yeah, they did. And whereas I don't think it's one of the best Castlevania games ever made, I did have fun with it. I don't like the fact that they actually took Maria out as far as being a playable character.
Yeah, and then they left the gimmick in of you have to get the keys to rescue people. But there's no benefit to doing it.
You get a minor ending change with each one you rescue, pretty much. And it's,
wow.
Yeah, it's like if you rescue Maria, but you don't manage to rescue Annette, then you get a picture of Maria and Richter standing there and like kind of Annette's face floating up behind you. And so on and so forth. Yeah, well, not really. It's just like her memory, And
like it's Terra Mask.
Yeah, well, I guess in a way. But it's just, there's not really much of a change in each ending. It's just like one picture that changes every time. So, nowhere near as radical as the different endings as Dracula X.
Yeah, it's like you don't even, it's like the replay thing, it's like not even that great. But it's just like, my major gripe about the whole thing is that I'd be willing to accept the downgraded version argument, but it still stands that the control is really terrible. The jumps are horrible to make, and it's so easy to get knocked down those holes.
Oh, the knockback's horrible in that game. I will definitely give it that. It is, I think, worse than nearly any Castlevania I played.
Well, it is better by comparison after Castlevania 64 came out, but that's not something I'd necessarily be proud of.
No, not in the slightest. But we're not even talking about that one tonight, so.
That's like having a friend come up to you and say that I shit on the couch. At least I didn't shit on the bed.
That is a really good analogy.
It's not, either way, it's bad news.
Yeah. Well, I played it, I enjoyed it, I beat it, I got all the endings. Haven't really played it since. But, like I said, I still don't mind it. So, since we got that out of the way, let's hear from Jose.
I think it's interesting and holds up in its own way. It's basically just as you said, they basically made another Castlevania game with reused assets, much in the same way that, say, I guess the closest thing I can compare it to is like Nintendo making Majora's Mask with Ocarina of Time. They said, hey, we have all these assets, let's make another game. And if you're willing to look past the fact that it's not Dracula X or Chino Rondo, I'd say it does a decent job of, being what it is. It does have a couple unique bosses. The jump mechanic feels, it doesn't feel like it's the same as in Rondo, the same as Rondo. So if you compare the two, you're definitely it'll definitely be jarring to players that are used to Rondo, for example, and then they jump onto Dracula X. But I feel like people that are not familiar with Rondo, people that didn't even know what Rondo was, I'm sure there was a game there for them to enjoy,
Mm-hmm. Funny story about that, actually, since you brought that up. I actually went and bought the Super NES game pretty much the day it came out. And later that week, I first played the PC Engine game by borrowing it from a guy I knew. So, and that actually both happened in the same week, so I was able to do a side-by-side comparison. And I know my ultimate conclusion was, okay, SNES game is pretty fun. This one's better. I need this. So,
I think their mixes of the songs are pretty good too. Like if you compare the opening track to Chino Rondo's, I think they did a pretty good job with the little electric guitar riff thing that they did in the beginning of the SNES version.
yeah, the music is certainly not bad. You know, it's
Yeah. And I thought the ending sequences were kind of nice. They were unique artwork made specifically for the game, and the artwork has a very different feel from the more anime-ish artwork of Chino Rondo. So I think that was kind of cool.
very true. It's just that it's just like one screen per ending, which never really got me.
Yeah, you get a couple screens, I think, in the beginning of the game, and then you get one of Dracula dying, and that one's really somber. I actually thought that was a really cool looking one, where he's got his head kind of just like he's kind of looking down, and the light's hitting him or something.
Yeah, at one point he's like
hitting him.
looking up, and he's got his hands raised, and
Like he's in agony. Yeah, I thought that was really cool art.
that was nice. It's just that they could have added a little more to the endings, depending on which ending you got. It would have been nice.
That's true. I mean, if you look at the manuals, there's additional unique art there too that was made, for Dracula X, as well as Rondo. Rondo had unique artwork in the manuals, and that stuff's really cool too. Something worth appreciating, I feel.
Yeah, and of course, for the U.S. release, they had to go ahead and reuse the PC Engine artwork for the cover.
So lame.
Yeah.
So lame. I feel like it deserved its own cover. I mean, I think that was its biggest problem, was literally just being looked at as a port of Chino Rondo, which it definitely was not. It was not a port of Chino Rondo.
It didn't help the magazines at the time either. Were all like, this is a port of Dracula X for the PC Engine. No, it's not. This was Konami's idea of a joke, kind of thing. It's like, this is no way anything like the PC Engine game.
Yeah.
Before you go on, Mike, one thing. On a side note, I just wanted to address the one lone bit of censorship I can think of when it was localized. And that is when Richter dies and how he erupts into a cloud of baby blue. And it's like, what?
Wait, it's baby blue? I thought that when he died, he just blew a load.
It might depend on the color of your TV, actually.
We'll talk about the little death.
Awesome.
Oh boy. But all right, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, Dracula X I now see as more of a rearranged port, like kind of similar situation that East 4 had, specifically between the SNES and the PC Engine version, although I think the SNES or SSC one came first. Not unlike how Metal Gear in the NES was like a rearranged port of the MSX original. Hell, Contra on the NES was a significantly rearranged version of the arcade original. So I sort of see... I know that almost feels like a blasphemous comparison. Also, the 3 versions of Popful Mail or whatever that was out, it was like that. I think that was just the sort of deal that Dracula X turned out to be. At least that's how I later came to see it. It is its own thing, an enhanced port. Oh, the specific comparison I had. This game is absolutely the Castlevania what Rockman and Forte was with Mega Man, taking Mega Man 8's graphics and compressing that down into the SNES and making an original game out of that.
I can see that.
So, on that basis, I do think that Dracula X is actually interesting and worth a look on its own, but even with that consideration in mind, it really can't escape the shadow of Rondo. And with Rondo being so beloved, and for those who have played it also, a sort of holy grail for importers back then, I could see the resentment rising that, this was a bad mea culpa for something much better that we never got over here until many years later. And thus I can see why there is much resentment on this game. Not to mention some of the Kaizo level bullshit it does pull is pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
It's just not as well laid out as Rondo. It's, for the most part, not as nice. One part in particular that I want to say, like, we already talked about the final Dracula fight, which is by and far the hardest Dracula fight in the entire series, and for all the wrong reasons. Totally fake difficulty of those fucking pits. But another part that can patently blow my ass is the bit in Stage 3 with the giant bone pillars and the infamous Medusa heads, where if you blow it, you're on the track to the bad ending, and if you didn't write the password down, you have to start the entire fucking game all over. It's like one shot there, and it's just... That's really bad and, discouraging design for the player. Granted, maybe no other part in the game's design is quite as egregious as those two bits, but my memory is a little rusty. Point is, Dracula X definitely could have been better. I understand what it is for what it is, but... Well, Rockman and Forte is my least favorite Mega Man game because of how unnecessarily difficult I find it. While this isn't my least favorite Castlevania game on that basis, it does, I think, kind of go overboard with the super challenge design, and yeah, it does ultimately just feel kind of off to me somehow.
Yeah.
Music's good, though, I will give it that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we're coming down to the end here. So, we've actually made it to 1997, in which we got two Castlevania games, one of which was a massive heavy hitter for the franchise, and the other one which was not, and in fact has been removed from Castlevania canon. So,
it failed so hard that Iga just killed it.
So that's the one we're going to talk about first. And that would be Castlevania Legends for Game Boy, rounding out the Game Boy trilogy. Go ahead, Mike. You seem to have something you want to say about Legends.
This one, Fatal does too, apparently. Worst arrangement of bloody tears in the series. That's the main thing I wanted to mention. My God, and this is how the game starts. It's really not a good look. Legends. It just feels so B-teamy. Fuck, C-teamy even. It wasn't even developed by the Kobe wing at the time. It was by Konami's Nagoya division. I don't know what the fuck else they worked on. You'd think that they would have had... Like, I know that at this point, Belmont's Revenge was like 4 years ago, but you'd think they would have retained some lessons from how great a game that was. I don't know why. It's like they just threw the baby out the bathwater entirely, and I don't really get the direction that Legends is trying to go for. It's like the stages just feel more drawn out, but not especially exciting. It has this weird gimmick, somewhat unique to Castlevania, I give it that, where you get new sub-weapons, which are actually spells that you get from the bosses, which... I guess that's interesting in its own way, but it doesn't really feel like that much of an innovation over the sub-weapons. Like, it's just... I don't know. My memory's rusty. I just remember not liking this one. I just felt, well, that was a game when I beat it. It's just...
Yeah.
The music's not very good. The graphics for a 1997 game, like, I know the Game Boy was getting really old at this point. Like, I guess this was the year the Game Boy Color debuted or whatever, but even then, the graphics actually look worse than Belmont's Revenge somehow, and I don't know how the fuck they managed that. Like, the only notable thing about this game is that the protagonist is a female Belmont by the name of Sonia, and like something out of some sort of horny fangirls fanfiction, she's apparently has a relationship with Alucard, and he's Trevor's dad or something like that, which I admit, that's fucking weird. I could see why Iga booted that from the actual overall canon of the series when he took over. Although I do think it is a shame that we missed out on the first actual heroine that the series... Oh, except for Maria. The only Lady Belmont that ever existed. I think Sonya could have been cool, but they just chunked it so hard with this game that I can't blame them for just forgetting it ever existed. This just barely feels like the Castlevania I know, and for the classic Vanias, it is kind of... It sucks that this was like the last of them for a long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So in that case, Fatal Vision, I'm sure you have some stuff to add. I'm pretty sure you do.
Wait, did he say something in the chat?
Let me see. Oh, he's back.
No? Oh, okay.
Anyway, we were saying Fatal Vision. You there?
Oh, no, he's not.
Oh, he was here.
Well, I'll step in his place for the time being, but...
Yeah, go for it,
worries.
man.
Okay, so basically I've been defending every game so far. I can't do that with this one.
Oh.
I can't do that with this one.
When Jose says it's bad, it's bad.
Yeah, it's official. Put a stamp on it, man. The music... Can I hear myself saying this? The music is mediocre in a Castlevania game.
Yeah, that just shouldn't be.
Mediocre music. Sotanga, like Mike said here, the sprite work is terrible. Oh man, the only redeeming quality I'd say it has, and this is very, very light. A very light amount of it is the artwork. The artwork is great, but there's hardly any artwork to begin with. I guess Trevor Belmont being the blade of the Castlevania franchise is kind of cool, I guess. Because that would make him half vampire or a quarter vampire, 3/4 human, or whatever fraction you want to talk about there. I guess that's kind of neat, but
Yeah.
It would explain their powers, I guess. But man, yeah, it's just not very good, man. It's not very good. Yeah. And one of the biggest problems it has, which I didn't realize until I started trying to know Death Run it, is it eats your jump inputs about 1/8 of the time. So you see a gap in front of you, and you try to jump over it, and then your character just walks off and dies.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
I mean, which is almost symbolic of the game itself. Just walk off and die.
Yeah, which it did.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you have your B team working on a Castlevania game. Or C team.
I'm glad I picked it up before it became unaffordable. I wouldn't buy it otherwise.
Yeah, I wish I'd held on to mine.
Well, who am I kidding? It's Castlevania. I'll buy anything. But still, I would not be happy purchasing that game. But, man, it's...
So, yeah, I think we're all in agreement here. Fatal Vision, you back yet?
Yeah.
All right. Your thoughts on Legends?
Legends? Oh, it's the worst iteration of Bloody Tears. The only Bloody Tears that this has
Same
to do...
thing, man, yes! Yes!
The only Bloody Tears that this has in relation to Castlevania is me clawing my fucking eyes out from the terrible visuals and gameplay.
I jab my fucking ears with a goddamn Q-tip. Bloody ears! Let's go with that. Boom! Yes, fuck. Print it.
Just take this game and throw it out on the front lawn.
Wow. I think we have more enmity against Legends than we do the more typically shat-on entries like Haunted Castle and The Adventure. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah. Oh, no. Look, we were doing a live Random Vania when it was like, hey, guys, check it out. I got this Legends. We've never seen it before. Let's try it. I got 3 minutes into it. I'm like, fuck this game.
Oh, man. Yeah. Legends bad.
Ooh, boy. Very bad. I'm not going to give it much more of its time. We were already kind of running over on this one anyway, so...
Yeah, so let's go ahead and finish up here with our last couple games. And good night, BL85. So, okay, obviously the other one that year was the game changer, so to speak. That would be Symphony of the Night. And it really was. I mean, there's way too much to unpack about this game. There's just so much involved in it, you know. It's huge. And it was Iga's way to try and tie the whole previous continuity together into one cohesive timeline. And switch things up by having a Belmont not being the main character. And also completely redeeming Alucard from his really piss poor showing in Castlevania 3.
Oh, yes.
But basically, I just want to talk about mostly the impact that it had on the series and what that led to. So, because as you know, pretty much every Castlevania after that became a Metroidvania.
Mm-hmm.
And I got nothing against them, but I can only handle one real Metroidvania in a lifetime, and Symphony's it. So, that said, Jose, your thoughts?
So that was the second game I'd ever played in the franchise, with the first being Circle of the Moon. So going into, mind you, I was in high school at the time. Going into it, I didn't know that, this is going to sound crazy, but I mean, I don't care. I'll say it. I didn't know Classicvanias were a thing at the time, because the two games I had played in succession were Circle of the Moon and Symphony of the Night. You know, so I thought that was the standard Castlevania.
Well, that makes sense.
Obviously, that changed over time, but I think it's great. The inverted castle, I'm not so crazy about. I feel
no one is. It's fine. It's like the Doc Robot levels from Mega Man 3. No one loves it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I guess it extends the gameplay, but I wish it would stop at this point. I feel like the game was already perfect with just one castle, and then they decided to flip the whole thing, and that was weird. Terrific music. I don't need to delve into that at all. The bosses. Okay, I have a gripe about that game. The bosses are kind of lazy. Like, they have maybe one or two attacks. They're way too easy. Like,
yes.
You know, it's like, okay, the creature, he rolls and he swings his hammer. Okay, cool. You know, can you do something a little cooler than that? Like, I feel like the bosses themselves they felt unfinished to me. Some of them, not all of them. Some of them were actually really well designed. Even just in terms of their appearance, they were really cool. But some of the bosses were like, "Hey, we need 20% more game. What do we do? I don't know. Throw the creature in there. Sure. What's he gonna do? I don't know. Somersaults? Sure. So let's throw that in there."
Yeah.
Sorry. What a strange note to end it on. But I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and cover this one. I just feel like this. It's a good game. It's just there are things about it I'm not crazy about.
Well, it's like I said, rather than talking too much about the game itself, although admittedly Beelzebub is one of the coolest bosses ever.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And Legion / Grand Falloon.
Oh
yes.
yeah, it's the first time I ever got to that thing, and it started screaming, and it's like, I'm in hell, aren't I? I just crossed the border into hell. Okay, I get it. But just the fact that it had such an impact and just changed everything. So, that said, Fatal Vision, your thoughts? Still here?
Alright, so there must be something wrong with this connection or something.
Yeah, it could be. Mike, go ahead and let's hear what you got to say until we hear from him again.
Okay. Well, yeah, no problem, Jim. FS chat was several streams ago, but okay. Yeah, Symphony, I honestly fucking love. I know it is a very unwieldy, imperfect beast, but it's like every few years I just get the urge to play through it all over again, and I have as much fun every time I replay it as I did previously. The aesthetics are incomparable. I'm not going to wax too much on what everyone already knows. Game looks fucking amazing, and basically told Sony to shove it that, 3D graphics were the way of the future. 2D graphics were still, I guess this was more like 2.5D. But the point is, the game looked amazing without having to throw polygons around like it was the next best thing.
Yeah, they kind of peppered them throughout it like they were seasoning.
Yeah, exactly. It showed restraint, and the game looks far, far better than its contemporaries on the PlayStation that went full in on 3D graphics. Like, fucking Bubsy 3D, get out of here. I know that's way too extreme a comparison, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
And yet, soundtrack, Mishiro Yamane's soundtrack is just fan-fucking-tastic. Surprisingly uses, like, almost entirely new music. Like, the only nod you get to a previous game, as far as I remember, is that the boss theme, against spoilers, Richter, does bring in some bars of the first stage music from Rondo. But other than that, this game proved that orchestral music could be done really fucking greatly, but there's more than just orchestral. There's, like, some sort of, like, prog funk, like with the Colosseum music, Wandering Ghost that I like, just straight up flat out metal rock with the Tragic Prince, and like sort of like EDM ambience with like the Crystal Underground music, and the music just, wow. So much great music. I just wish there was more music in the Inverted Castle, because Finale Toccata gets pretty old really quick.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
That's something like a fucking ROM hack or ISO hack or what have you could do to put on. Like, bring in music from Rondo of Blood and put it here instead, because Greg Prince Wrestling Symphony Night ever gave us. So, maybe not the best thing, but it is one of the better it is a very good thing.
I kind of feel like we could do an entire roundtable just about the music of Castlevania.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, hey, I want to say this. I could babble more about Symphony, but if we ever do a second Castlevania stream, you want me to save further thoughts for that? Because this has been more about the Classicvanias. There are a lot more things I could say. The game's very imperfect. It has a lot of flaws, certainly, but I still fucking love it, and I'd be glad to elaborate on it more if we ever hold a second one of these, focusing more on the action-adventure RPGs of the series, so I'm up for it.
FATALVISION, you there? I wonder what happened.
Shit.
Well, he's still on the call, so...
Let me type something.
I think the music, I'm sorry, not the music. There are definitely some cool boss designs in there. To me, the game just feels like they hit a point, and then the game simply stops shining.
Yeah.
They said, copy and paste these areas. Let's use this one song for the majority of the Inverted Castle.
I could spend a long time talking about the Inverted Castle and the perils of padding, so to speak. I would even argue that maybe the game starts to get a little bit long in the tooth, as soon as you reach what's ostensibly the climax, the castle keep. But then, you find, oh shit, no, you gotta go to the catacombs and the Colosseum and the whatever, and okay, I don't know exactly when the game tires out before the Inverted Castle, if it does, but it absolutely does when you are there. But again, I do understand that it's actually a sort of similar, throw everything at the wall approach that this game's closest contemporary, Simon's Quest, did. And also, like I said, sort of to an extent, Super Castlevania 4 did. Because this was the one and only, as it turned out, Castlevania game on the PlayStation. And while they would arguably refine the formula later and decide on what did and what didn't work in Symphony, I still just think that Symphony in its own way was also light in the bottle, where I hate to sound shallow, but in this case aesthetics really go a long way to make a game memorable. And while, Aria of Sorrow and Portrait of Ruin Order of Ecclesia on the DS might play better, they don't look as good as this one. This one just...
Well,
I can fall asleep with the aesthetics of this game very peacefully and dreamily. It's so good.
Like I'd said, as far as the whole Metroidvania thing, that was one of those things where it was just like, I thought it was a nice change of pace, and I was ready to go back into some classic Castlevania after I'd taken some, advantage of the newer consoles that were coming out. But it didn't happen.
Nope, that's what gaming was at the time, man. And I guess, is that like the inciting incident where your virtual cavemanism began?
I wouldn't say that exactly, no. I would say, though, that was kind of the beginning of the end of Castlevania with me. Because after, it's like, it reached a peak with Symphony, and then I played Legend, and it's like, wow, this is the best they can do with the classic Vanias now? And then the next game we got, not only was it for a portable console, it was another Metroidvania, and then another, and then another, and then another, and then another. And I was just like, nope, I'm done. So that just kind of did it for me. I was basically finished. I still loved the series, still loved what I played, but I wasn't about to go any further. Now, Fatal Vision, you back yet?
Shit, I think he's like dead. Huh.
Maybe you fell asleep.
Yeah, it's possible.
We have gone a lot later than expected, so
yeah.
But
that is probably my fault, as usual.
That said, though, we got to move on to our final game, because there is one we're going to cover. We basically did the first decade of Castlevania here. But somewhere along the line, Konami got both wise and stupid. And
Your shadows.
No, that was just stupid. What they did was
I call it Lords of Shit Show, but go on.
I call it Lord of the Rings meets Shadow of the Colossus, and there's like nothing Castlevania about that. I'm sorry, but
and God of War also.
Yeah, whatever.
So.
But when they got smart was to make these Rebirth games for the Wii. And it's like you had Gradius Rebirth, thank you. Contra Rebirth, yeah, thank you. And Castlevania the Adventure Rebirth. Yes, take one of the admittedly least best of the classic Vanias and give it a total makeover? Absolutely. And yes, Jim, we did. You just missed that. But yes, Castlevania the Adventure Rebirth. And if I recall correctly, and I believe I do, I know Eugene recently got done streaming his way through it. You back me up on that, Jose?
Wait, Jose, you there?
Huh.
Are we losing everyone like this is some sort of like, horror stream or whatever? And then there were none.
Soon it's just going to be me.
Can you hear me?
Ah, there you
sorry,
are.
my earbuds.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
What were you saying?
Eugene recently streamed Castlevania Adventure Rebirth.
Yeah, he sure did.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he finished it, too.
And yeah, he did.
Which is more than I've done so far.
Yeah.
Womp womp.
At any rate, what I've played, I've really enjoyed. And now we get to the part about Konami being stupid, because they leave those games to rot on the Wii.
Yeah.
They're stuck in... Not only are they stuck in Wii jail, but because there's no fucking physical versions either, they're dead if, you don't... If A, you don't have a Wii that already has them downloaded, or B, go to emulation. And this is a goddamn pulpit I will always jump on, but this is why fucking game preservation is important today. There's probably actually a good chunk of forever lost games that, weren't saved in time because piracy evil, because big fucking business wants its slice of the pie. Fuck me, fuck you, I got mine. And that's just not good for not just video games, but entertainment in general. Medium, the physicality of medium is a detriment against it, and I feel that if things aren't at least preserved digitally and backed up across 100 various hard drives, then, that's a failure of preserving a part of human history. it's like they said in MST3K, keep circulating the tapes. This is something that I get really heated over nowadays. I just can't stress it enough. If anyone tells me piracy is evil, I'll pop you in the fucking mouth. That's all I'm saying.
Whoa, Mike, no tossing out threats here, please.
A little. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It's late. I'm getting angry, obviously. I'll shut up.
All I will say is that apparently Konami hates money.
Oh, yes. Even more than Sega. So.
Yeah. That's like why they haven't taken it. They have not taken those 3 games and put them on some kind of a compilation disc, or even just re-release them as, digital downloads or something else. Even the freaking Switch,
Yeah, no, that feels like a no-brainer.
They're
just
too busy making money off pachinko machines
and fitness clubs and anything that isn't a fucking video game. God, Jesus.
Yeah, Konami's fallen a long way.
They're not even the worst company in video games now, but they might be the worst major Japanese company of note. So,
yeah. That said, Castlevania: The Adventure Rebirth was really good.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it is a really fun adventure. It certainly doesn't feel as fresh as Belmont's Revenge, but it does feel like the other, like the Gradius and Contra Rebirths did. That it does feel like an amalgam of everything throughout the series at that point. Like, you could, like, not just Adventure and Belmont's Revenge. Like, here you can maybe see a bit of Bloodlines. Here you could see a little influence from maybe Haunted Castle. In fact, one of the music tracks, it becomes the name entry music. The high score entry music for Haunted Castle becomes the stage music for Stage 2 in this game. That is such a fucking deep reach, and I goddamn love it. Stage 4, also a deep reach. I believe it takes a loading track from Castlevania X68000, and then that's the Stage 4 music. That's fucking bonkers. I love it.
Yeah, that's pretty out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a fully original game, nor it is meant to be. It is 100% a throwback, even if it doesn't fully have its own identity. Where it does draw from, it at least draws some from pretty unique sources. Like the Spectral Sword, previously just harder than normal enemy from Symphony of the Night, actually becomes a full-fledged boss in this game, and it's pretty wicked. One of the bosses is actually pretty original, really a concept I really like. This large, beefy, bulky, Hulk-like zombie that, after the fight goes on a bit, it, like, deflates and becomes this relatively skinny but very agile creature that then, like, spins into you like a goddamn Top Man, but not crap.
Now I'm just picturing a zombie deflating like a balloon now. Right?
Yes.
Including the noise.
I don't know if you've seen that boss, Dyer. It's the end boss of Stage 2.
I think I have,
pretty
actually.
crazy. Oh, neat. Yeah, no, it is really cool. But yeah, I see some Bloodlines in here, some Haunted Castle, like I said. And of course, I think the most apparent influence from Adventure is that this game loves the goddamn rolling eyeball enemies.
Yes.
It also has an interesting handle on Christopher's Fire Whip. You get one power-up, it goes from leather to chain. That's permanent. But you get a second power-up, you do get to shoot the fireballs. However, it is a limited power gauge where you, like, get, like, I don't know, 30 seconds or so of the whip power, but then you just go back to the chain whip. I think that's a rather interesting way of handling it, although, like, also this game doesn't feel as built around the fire whip, so it doesn't really feel like much of a detriment, just as it does, a nice little bonus, like the powered-up weapons you can get for John and Eric in Bloodlines. But,
Mike, before you go any further, since we are running late, I gotta catch up and go to Jose.
Oh, no, absolutely. I didn't have much else to say either, so.
All right. Jose.
Like everybody else, I just hope it gets ported to modern consoles in a collection of 3 games. They could even throw some artwork in there, stuff that we maybe didn't get to see that the developers did, stuff like that.
That would be nice.
And that's really it. Like, I don't think, I don't think it needs much more than that. I just hope limited. It's probably going to end up being a limited run games thing. We're going to get digital only, and then they're going to release a $200 version that comes in a box.
This whole
As somebody that collects everything Castlevania physical, like at least the games and the soundtracks, I can't stand how many of these $200-$300 editions of Castlevania games keep coming out. I'm kind of at my wit's end on that. And I'm starting to reach a point where I'm just like, sooner or later I'm gonna have to throw in the towel unless it's a completely new game.
Hey, not change that real quick, but it's like Scrollboss just showed up, and I would like to take the opportunity to point out that the sprites we're using here for the background, all created by him.
Hello, nice job.
Yes, really cool. Prime, I actually debated on whether or not to use Frankenstein's monster or the classic giant head Medusa. Rob said that Frank looked cooler, so I went with that. But, great job, man.
I had my selection right from the start. It was always going to be Death.
Oh, yeah, definitely a good choice.
Yes.
That was terrible. Fucking terrible, I know.
Jose was the unexpected one, actually.
Yeah, instead of going for a much more elite boss, they just went for a good old blood skeleton. Although, among Dracula's more standard mooks, not a bad choice because they are immortal, so...
yeah, stay for a few games, yeah.
Jose
actually,
the Immortal.
But fun fact, in Dracula X Chronicles, when you save, I forget if it was Tara or Iris, one of the hostages that isn't Maria or Annette, but in that game, I think it was Iris, you save her, she actually gives you the ability to permanently destroy the blood skeletons. This is important because there's a gate that's made entirely of red bones that gets you a secret that you need for 100%, so that's how that works, but it also gives you a little bonus. But otherwise, you are mostly immortal, so good choice.
I like that you know that, Sotenga.
That was a really fucking dorky specific fact that I just knew off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Well, you're in the right place for that, then. So, anyway, unless either of you have anything you'd like to add about Rebirth.
Yeah, Fatal, I don't know where he went, man, but
we're
sorry
not sure
with whatever happened.
Yeah.
I had some issues with my microphone.
Oh, there you are.
Hi.
Hey, you're back. So,
Rebirth, I had heard about it. A couple of my regulars kept recommending that I play it. They managed to get me a copy of it. And
not a fan, huh?
Nah.
Okay, no worries.
The difficulty was insanity.
It is tough. I will say that.
Well, it can be kind. I will say, if there is a detraction, the stages do run kind of over long each. I could see where that would be a deal breaker for some.
Yep.
So, yeah, lack of checkpointage if you lose all your lives, and that's like, I don't know, some of them run up to like 10 minutes. My brain is, my recollection is a little rusty, but no, I can totally understand that, all considered.
Now, we're going to wrap up in a couple minutes here, but since you missed the whole section on Symphony, you have any thoughts on that immediately?
Symphony, sometimes it can be a bit overrated, especially when you compare it to the fact that everybody thought that it was extremely groundbreaking visually, when if you think about it, it's really, Dracula X Rondo of Blood sprites. But the one thing that I will give it is that it did breathe new life into the series, because once again, as I had said earlier, that basically, the series needed new shit, and Bloodlines prove that. By putting new things in, you make it really enjoyable. By taking this and giving it an all-new gameplay style, you completely took the series and turned it on its head.
Yeah.
Now, does this make me think that it's like the greatest as much as everyone says it is? It looks pretty, but so did Rondo of Blood, where the sprites are from. The music's alright, the music is phenomenal, but I like to look at goth rock is what I would call this music, while Rondo is industrial music. and that's a preference thing. And just all in all, it was a really great game. It's a little overrated, but it's a really great game.
Completely valid, man.
Yep, totally valid. So with that, I think
It
we're
did
gonna
save the franchise.
yes, and it definitely had an impact on it that lasts for some time.
Yes.
So that said, since we've reached the end, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So, just so everyone knows, this coming Saturday, we are finally doing the long-awaited sequel stream to the Cute Retro Game stream that we did way to hell back when. So,
And I agree with Jim right there. I like that Symphony was a sequel to Ron.
that was cool.
That was cool, yeah. Although it did kind of leave us who didn't import Rondo a little bit confused on things. Like, I actually didn't realize that for the longest time. The infamous intro, Die Monster, blah, blah, blah. What is a man, etc. Legendary as it is. It's funny how, while you're meant to win that fight, it isn't much less difficult than it was in the original, but maybe that's unfair to say, I don't know.
Fun fact, I actually also imported Symphony before it became available in the US.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I got the art book and the
really
music
cool.
CD and all that. But yes, like I was saying, we'll be doing this coming Saturday, the second part of the Cute Retro Game stream, and Expert and Kyle should be joining us. Other than that, we should have, I think, I was talking to the publisher, we're looking at a September launch for everything about the books, for those who are still curious. They are coming.
Nice.
Everyone who contributed, among them Mike and Fatal Vision, will get to read their stories in print before too long.
Nice.
There you go.
So, but beyond that, yeah, let's see. Betty's already gone to bed, and I'm getting tired myself. So we're gonna go ahead and cut it off here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I had a time, and it was great to meet all of you.
Oh yeah, it was definitely great
Absolutely,
having you
man.
in. Sucks you had to miss the Splatterhouse one, but at least we got you in for this one.
Yeah, Splatterhouse would have been fun, considering how those reviews went.
Yeah, and thank you for coming in, Jose.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
It was fun.
speaking of Splatterhouse, I don't know if anyone recalls, but I was actually a guest on Jose's stream about One Pocket Graffiti.
Ah, that's true. Yeah, I did stream that one.
Yeah, and if you look at the news section of West Banshee, like the What's New thing, first thing you'll see is the rotating Terror Mask image you made for me.
Oh, nice, man. I gotta drop in and check that out.
Yeah, it's been
Sweet.
up there for a while now, actually. And of course, Mike,
Nice.
thank you as always for coming in.
And bloating things up with my overblown rants, I did definitely get a little carried away in this one, but so it is.
So it is. So all I can say to that is,
Yep.
all right, folks.
God damn it.
Everyone have a good night, and we will see you hopefully on Saturday for Cute Retro Games Part 2.
There you go.
Awesome.
So
Take care, everyone.
everybody have a
Be
fun.
good, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.